Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Tales of Tamriel. I am your host, Aggelos, and with me this evening I have my beautiful wife, she who will never have more Nirnroot than me, Thais. How are you doing?
I didn't know I was so beautiful. Thank you, I appreciate it.
No problem at all. How are you doing tonight, my dear?
Now I don't know if you're speaking to me or Crabby after that little exchange there. I'm good. I will definitely own more Nirnroot than you one day, and then you'll be coming to me and marveling over my massive stacks of Nirnroot.
Side note, if Zenimax ever listens to this, please add like a singing backpack, because I think anytime you should have Nirnroot in your bags, you should hear that singing coming from your backpack at all times. Because I would never drop it, because I love that singing. Alright, let's, also joining me this evening, he who sparkles in the sunlight and for some reason falls in love with unattractive, terrible actresses, Crabby. How are you doing this evening?
Unattractive, terrible actresses? Who are you talking about?
I just made a Twilight reference, good sir.
Kristen Stewart.
I have no idea. I've never seen those. I'm fantastic. It is Easter, and there was a lot going on today.
Did you guys eat a lot of food? Like,
yes.
Good?
Coming from an Italian family, we had a ham, potatoes, manicottis, meatballs, everything you can think of. It's
that sounds mighty tasty.
Yeah.
All we had was, they had lots of other food there, but I won't eat a lot of things, so I was stuck with chicken and what are they called? Those potatoes that are red and creamy?
They're sweet potatoes or yams.
Oh, they are so good. I love yams.
Those are too sweet for me. I don't know.
They're just the way that they're cooked in his family, though, they like fall apart and they're mushy and I love them.
Kind of like sweet potato fries. After I have about like 6 of them, I don't want to eat another one for like a month and a half. I don't know. Like too much taste for me.
After eating sweet potatoes today, I probably won't want another one for another year from now. So yeah, I'm about the same way.
All right. Well, let's see here. I ate a lot today. I actually used the Hobbit term where they say there's that delightful period called filling up the corners, because I picked a lot. Like I ate a whole bunch and then I just ate all day long.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good time, and I like it. All right, so we have a lot of news to get into today, and I think we have a pretty fun show planned. So let's get started. First off on the news gambit, since in the pre-show we were talking about Daedric princesses, Azura statue is now on sale at the Bethesda store. So starting today, you can pre-order the Good Lady of Twilight Shrine for your Daedric collection. The Shrine of Azura is available in limited quality and can be pre-ordered at the official Bethesda store or at gamingheads.com. They have a regular and an exclusive edition. Azura stands 1/6 scale of the mountaintop statue you encounter in Skyrim.
What's it made out of? It looks really nice.
It does. I would imagine it's the pewter statues? Yeah, they tend to make them out of those, I would imagine.
It could be the same stuff made out of the Molag Bal statue, because that one's not, that one's plastic, I think.
It's possible, but for the price tag, I doubt it. Because the price tag it's up there. I forget how much.
$100.
Yeah, 100. That's not even the exclusive. Here we go. Do you see the exclusive edition? The exclusive one, they did one for Talos as well, where they had a regular one, which was kind of gray and stone looking, and then they had an exclusive one, which I guess was a limited edition. And of that limited edition, it was like bronzed, I think, on the outside. It looked pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. They're only making 750 of these. Wow.
Of the exclusive or the regular?
It just says Shrine of Azura statue deposit.
Wow. That's not as many as I thought. I guess it would depend on how many people bought the actual Talos one as well. But could you imagine having you'd have a pretty nice collection, because if you bought not the legendary, the collector's edition of the Xbox version of Skyrim when it came out, you would have an Alduin statue. You would have the Talos statue. You could have the Molag Bal if you got the Imperial edition of Elder Scrolls Online, and now you'd have Azura. You're on your way to having a pretty nice shelf.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, other than that, we'll move on to the next section here. Bug found where people's bank slots were resetting back to default of 60. ZeniMax has an open thread for people needing the items restored. I did put this in here because there are some patch notes later on, which they fixed this in patch 1.04. And I know they restored that, but I think there was still... They said that even if they restored the bank slots, if the items were missing, you were to go out and still put in a ticket and contact customer support so that they could assist you. Has anyone got hit with this in... I haven't.
I haven't
either. But I know that two of the other guilds that I'm in, a lot of people were complaining about getting hit with it. So I know that it's happened a lot. And I think someone in our guild was actually hit with it as well. But we were one of the fortunate ones. We were not hit with this. And I'm still kind of wary about filling up my bank.
Well, see, what's funny is my bank has been full since I started playing, and I've been consistently buying more slots, and I haven't had an issue. A lot of people were saying on Reddit it was an issue when you had alts and you would do banking on alts. I don't know how true that is. It didn't happen to me. I mean, it looks like the bug is fixed now. ZeniMax just has to catch up on, restoring items and stuff. So.
Right. Actually, I don't have it in the notes, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Did you guys hear about the item duplication bug with guild banks?
That was bad. People were duping hundreds of stacks of legendary items and stuff, and
they started handing out bans.
Well, I mean, it's good they did. This is a good thing why there's no global auction house, because how much more of the economy would be screwed up?
I agree.
If it was a global auction house.
I agree. I think the most people would probably be able to do with that particular thing is make large stacks of the legendary and then just vendor trash them. Because if you could just constantly reproduce it, you could make quite a bit of gold. But yeah, you're right. It would be too hard to really sell, because at most you're selling to 500 people. At best,
yeah,
you would be selling to 2,500 people if you were in 5 guilds with 500 people in each one. And that's it. Versus a global auction house, or even a server-wide auction house that Warcraft and Rift and stuff had, where it could be lots of people that you'd be selling to. You can really mess the market up. But I'm glad they're handing out bans, because you're doing something wrong if you're getting that. No one can say, "Oh, well, it's in here." It obviously is not working as intended. If you're actively using it, you're doing something bad, because you just know it's not right. So
yeah.
You probably are going to get banned. Kind of funny thing that'll, I think we're going to get a little lighthearted here. This bug has existed in almost every single rendition of the Elder Scrolls single player games as well. The item duplication bugs in Oblivion, you could do that too, where you could point and click in your inventory, and I forget how you did it, but early on when it was first released, you could duplicate your items in your bank spots and just keep selling them to earn money. So it's kind of like a time-honored tradition at this point to have this bug in place.
That's too funny. I know I caught one of the conversations in one of my guilds where they were talking about people were using that guild bank to duplicate items, and that if anyone was caught, they were going to get reported and hopefully banned and kicked from the guild and slammed all across the site. So I know that even one of the guild masters was like, "Hey, this is an issue here."
Right. I think we're at this point, Crabby. If you want to restart the stream, you can go ahead and do so. I think we're having an issue with the stream at the moment. I don't know if you've restarted it yet.
I just did.
Okay, good.
So,
all right, we'll keep going on the news here because next up was Ask Us Anything Craglorn. Now, we actually had an episode on Craglorn. Was it last episode? Yeah, where we made some interesting theories and stuff like that as we talked about it. And today I kind of want to go over this Ask Us Anything. It's not real long, but just to go over the different things to see how right or in some cases how wrong we really were. So first off, are all new zones going to be tailored towards groups? And ZeniMax replies, the plan is to make sure we introduce a large variety of activities and types of content in the future. You shouldn't expect every zone we release to be an adventure zone at all. I guess that's
I like that. I think that's good because, maybe in a month we'll get a patch that's like, oh, here's a zone for veteran level 12 to 13, and it's all solo stuff. I mean, that'd be cool.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, no matter every game that I know of, Warcraft did it, Rift did it, anytime they had a raid expansion, they often had a group questing zone, if you will, or even a solo questing to grab the people. Some people just don't like grouping up. I mean, and again, especially what's kind of nice about in this game is they don't need to get some of the best gear. They can craft it. It might be hard for them to get it, but they can still kind of go that solo route. And it's nice that they have options for everyone. That's how you keep a healthy player base, is by having options for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
If a game that was solely... here's a perfect example of a game that, while I find it interesting and may try it, it would not hold me. It's Camelot Unchained. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's actually from the other guys who worked at Mythic.
Well, that's supposed to be the successor to the Dark Age of Camelot, right?
Essentially,
spiritual successor.
Well, at the same note, I think half the team, not even half the team, there was a couple leads at Mythic. One of them went to ZeniMax, and they did this, which is almost Dark Age of Camelot, almost all the systems. But the other guy formed his own company, and now they're trying it. But this, he even said, I'm designing this to be a very niche type MMO. There's no PvE leveling, no PvE questing, nothing like that. It's all PvP. That's it. Now, it's the 3-faction PvP, just like Dark Age, just like this, just like Guild Wars 2. But that's a very niche game. He's like, I don't expect us to have, millions upon millions of subscribers. This is solely a PvP game. But that kind of thing, like he even says it, that will hold the hardcore PvPers only. Like, because there's nothing for us. Because I like to try it, but I wouldn't play it all the time.
I would not even want to try it. It doesn't even sound fun to me at all. There is nothing about it that interests me. That sounds like a horrible game.
I mean, I like PvP, but I like to do it casually, Like, I'll join Cyrodiil and just mess around for a little while, but I don't know.
Likewise, like we had our PvP night the other night. We spent a couple hours in there, and we had a blast. Could I imagine doing that every single day? Oh, no.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. But that's my play style. I'm mostly PvE with a splash of PvP. PvP has to be in my games, or else I get bored, because I like to know it's there for me to play with.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't be the sole thing. And that's the same with PvE questing, like solo questing. It needs to be there, but I like group stuff. Raids need to be there for me to have fun. But for other people, they don't need to be there. They don't want to do it. But having the options are a good thing. So, wow, we spent a lot of time on one question. Moving on. Do you only get rewards if you're at the very top of the leaderboard? And they say no, there are rewards you're eligible for on a weekly basis, regardless of whether your group makes the leaderboards. There is also normal loot drops in trials and other unique gear you can obtain in Craglorn. Think of leaderboard rewards as a little something extra for doing well. Everyone else will still be able to obtain the gear they want throughout Craglorn and the trials. The big thing I'm interested here is no weekly lockout, but there is a loot lockout. What do you guys think of that?
I'm totally okay with that because I like going and helping my guildies and my friends out with raid content and things like that. So I like the option to go back in there even after I've completed it just to help out my friends and guildies. So I think that's a great idea.
I like it because you can't farm gear, all week. I think it's good.
Yeah. One of the big problems I find with games that don't have some sort of loot lockout is, like, for instance, Thais and I, we have no objections whatsoever from waking up on, like, a Saturday at 7 in the morning and playing till, 7 in the morning the next day. Maybe her more so than me, because I need my beauty rest, and if you guys saw what I look like, you would agree too. But as such, the problem with that kind of play is people can burn out of the content in a day, like 24 hours of grinding the same boss over and over again for loot till you get it. Once you got the loot, why do you go back?
Yeah. I mean, and it's also one of those things where when you have a loot progression based game, you kind of feel like you have to do that thing to get the loot. So if there was no loot lockout, you would be sitting there going, I have to do it like all night now so I can get this one thing. So I mean, you do the boss once, you don't get anything, whatever.
I think it's kind of neat also. It's kind of like an artificial stopgap, wherein the hardcore players who want to compete for that time can do so if they desire, okay? And they can do so as much as they want. They can defend their title as much as they want and keep going, but they can't keep farming gear to make it easier on themselves. They just have to refine their strategy and get better that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. So yeah. Anyone else have anything to say on that particular item?
Nope.
Good. That was an artificial time lengthener while I found the page. Okay, so there is a timer in Trials, but we don't have to beat the timer, do we? I'm guessing some people are not the rush types. Answer from ZeniMax, you will only need to worry about your time in Trials if you're trying to make it onto leaderboards. Trials can be completed at your group's pace, and if you can defeat all the challenges in the trial, you will be rewarded no matter how long it took. That's kind of neat. I mean, self-explanatory. There's not a minimum time limit. You can be in there for 8 hours if you want to pull one trash mob every 20 minutes.
Oh, like how I tank. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Is everyone ready? Does everyone need potions? There's a minute off your food timer. Eat another one. Yeah, that's her. All right.
I just like to make sure everyone is prepared. That's all. I'm a woman. That's typical for me.
There's a difference between being prepared and over-prepared. I, on the other hand, am the tank who goes, I'm pulling everything! And I just run in and hope people can keep up. All right. Can't wait for it. Will there be a new motif?
Most depressing answer of the entire AMA.
No new motifs will be available in Craglorn, but there are some great items you can get for your efforts. See, here's something that I kind of like. The gear that we saw in the video and stuff like that, which we'll talk about a little bit, it seems like you can only get that via drops. And I like that. So it makes people have to do it. Because I guess there'll be no real stat difference from crafted gear to that, but it won't have the cool look. So if you want the cool look and possibly the cool enchants, I imagine they'll have unique set bonuses just because this would be a perfect opportunity to have unique set bonuses, would be to have it in Craglorn, would only be able to get them from here.
Now, you did notice that the answer was there is no new motif dropped in Craglorn. So that means that there is still a chance of new motifs in the future.
Oh, yeah, in the future, definitely.
Yeah, in the future. Oh, yeah, no, but as for this patch, there's not going to be any.
I just had to point that out because I wanted to make sure everyone noticed that.
As a side note, I've been getting Daedric Hearts as a style material, but I do not have the motif for it.
I have a theory about motifs. I think they only drop if they're on the loot table in towns and stuff. If the enemies are present, like you can get all these racial motifs in towns. I don't think we're going to start seeing primal until you start getting into some of the higher level areas. Or Daedric only will drop out of the town maybe in.
So you know what I found that was interesting was now you know how when you level a crafting you have to put points into the very top thing that says you can now use X and X material or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, right now I have 6 out of 9 points into the top tier of clothing. And I can craft ebon heart or ebon weave and like creshweed gear. And I'm in the last zone for level 50s, which means when you do New Game Plus and Plus Plus, there's going to be different crafting materials in the other Alliance zones that are higher level.
Right. It's similar to, I think, the crafting for, as you go up, each one, like I can craft level 50 stuff right now with ebony ingots, but there are 4 other types of ingots that I still have yet to learn, and I think
those are in the new zone, not the new zones, but those are in the other faction territories, which I found interesting. I didn't think they were going to go that in depth. I thought it was going to be like older stuff in those.
Right. I'd be surprised at that. It'd be interesting. So
I'm happy to hear that, extremely, because I enjoy my clothing crafting, and I'm thoroughly enjoying my clothing and my alchemy crafts.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. I wouldn't want to see players find routes to skip a lot of trash mobs and figure out ways to cheese the bosses. It'll happen like it always does, but hopefully ZeniMax is smart enough in its design and testing to avoid too much. Another worry would be how much of a time sink they will be. First off, there's no question in there. Please form your sentences properly. No question mark. That's a statement. Anyway, but they did answer this. Trial lengths will vary by group. We suspect it to range from 30 minutes to 1.5 hours, depending on your group's experience and skill level. In the video, we did see that where it showed the guy's time of 73 minutes, I think, but then like the top leaderboards were 43 minutes, stuff like that. So, kind of interesting.
I wonder how many trials there are. Is there the one trial with what it looked like 3 different bosses, or are there multiple ones? Because 30 minutes to, let's say the worst group does it in 2 hours. That doesn't seem like a lot, for a weekly. Is it a weekly cooldown to get loot?
Weekly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I kind of have an answer and a theory, but we're gonna hold that till we get to the new Craglorn website, because there's something I want to show in there that I have theories about. So we'll move off of that one for right now, and we'll touch on that a little later. Does Craglorn have separate instances for each alliance, or do we all 3 alliances intermingle? Craglorn will function. My goodness, I need to learn to read. Will function in a manner similar to how Cold Harbor works now. Each alliance will go to an identical version. Kind of straightforward. There will be no intermingling of alliances, and I don't think the technology's really even there. Because even when the game was first announced, they were talking about before they even announced that you could go to the other people's factions. It was originally you had to make one on each faction to explore the storyline. Then they're like, well, no, people want to go see everything on one character. We'll give them 50 plus, 50 plus plus. And people were like, well, will we see people trying to quest and level? Like, no, you'll have your own zone. So I think pretty much the only place that joins is Cyrodiil. I think everything else is insanely separated. Our server is completely different from Daggerfall, completely different from Aldmari Dominion, and we don't join until we queue into Cyrodiil. So I think that's why.
I like that. I don't like seeing the dirty elves in my Ebonheart pack towns. Ew.
Indeed. Dirty elves, dirty elves. All right. Did you add more veteran ranks? There was a part of the video where character was veteran rank 12. Craglorn and the Trials will rank from veteran rank 11 to veteran rank 12. But you'll be able to visit at veteran rank 1 or above. See, here's one thing that we were talking about. When would we be able to get in? We thought it was going to be a little higher because there's currently 10 veteran ranks, but apparently not. And here's something else. I didn't really theorize this, but I did kind of during one of our analogies saying how veteran ranks might be. I was thinking it was going to be a whole 10 levels. It seems they only went 2. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's fine because I was talking to somebody who was veteran rank 10, and he said to get from veteran rank 1 to 10, he said it literally takes 2 times as long from 1 to 50. So I'm fine. I'm fine with that because there is no way I'll be veteran rank 10 by the time this comes out. So I'm totally happy.
So you go from level 50, which is the start of veteran rank 1.
Correct.
And then you go from veteran rank 1 to 10.
Correct.
There's no 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Oh, no, there is. No, yeah, like you'll rank. So, like, let's say you get to level 50 and you start the next faction's quests. By the time you're done with that faction, you'll be veteran rank 5, most likely.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's essentially you're leveling to 60. They just named it something else.
You're leveling to 150.
Well,
if it takes 2 times as long as 1 to 50, that's crazy.
That's awesome.
I think it's good.
That makes it worthwhile.
I say it's crazy in a good way. I love it.
Definitely.
Anything outside of traditional endgame that has me doing other things, I enjoy.
I agree. It's definitely a neat system. I just thought they would go further than what they did. I mean, it's just a number, and it doesn't mean much. But
see, here's the thing, though. Maybe in June, I'm throwing random ideas out there. Maybe in June they'll say, "Okay, we have a new we have a new zone. We're gonna open up Whiterun, a part of Somerset Isles, and a part of Daggerfall, and you can go from veteran rank 12 to 13. Have fun."
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do that. That would be kind of cool.
Right. I mean, it really, it's just a number. But this is where, like, for instance, if anyone remembers the Warcraft item level craziness, because they started jumping item levels. So it's just a number. Just a tiny number. But people didn't feel like item level 50 to 51 was a big deal. So early game, you would get item level 50, 51 gear from questing, and then the first raid you got was item level 70, and then it was item level 100, and likewise the math went up with it, and now it's like before, I guess this new, it was just insane. You went from having 5 strength, 10 strength on your stuff to 100 strength, 150 to now it's 1,000? It's over 1,000?
See, the thing with veteran ranks is I believe they are more akin to actual levels, because if I remember correctly, you can only wear certain types of endgame gear at certain veteran ranks.
That's correct. It is. It's a way of gating, and I kind of like this to an extent because it makes people go and have to level a character. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I was raiding in Warcraft, I could level a character at 9. Not that I did, because I only ever played one character. But I could, and then bring my fresh max level character into a raid with all my raiding team and say, okay, carry me through it, and I'd be bare minimum item level to get into the raid, and by the end they give me all the gear, I would be one of the top geared people. You can't do that now, because yeah, I can give you the gear, but you can't put it on until you've actually earned the veteran rank for it. And I like that. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. Again, it's just a number. I was just kind of surprised. You normally, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that it's not common to end on a weird number like 12 or 2. It's common to end at things that are equally divisible, like 5 or 10.
See, you know why I like weird numbers like that? Because it makes me feel like they have something else up their sleeve. Not soon, but relatively soon. I feel like they already know what they're gonna do, and it's all like they're working on for past 12, like, already.
Oh yeah. Well, anyone who does any kind of MMO development knows that you, even with the patching and stuff like that, the people are saying the stuff that we get pushed to on public test realms, and I can tell you this is true from a sysadmin point of view, because I have a Citrix environment that I push applications out to people, and I generally have 3 or 4 working versions. Either I have a live version, I have a test version, which people are actively testing for bugs, and then I have my maintenance versions, which I'm actively working on. And sometimes I have 1, 2, 3 of those. So just because my customers are using version 1, technically I'm on version 4 by now. You know, so you definitely have to plan ahead. You can't just throw the game out and go, okay, now what should we do next? Okay, we've spent a lot of time on that one. We're going to move on. Have we heard of these Celestials before? Are these just come out? Are these just those burst signs that we pick at the start of the Elder Scrolls games? The Celestials are a new concept based on existing lore of the constellations of Elder Scrolls games. There's quite a bit of lore in Craglorn that will be interesting for fans to discover. First off, the Guardians have existed, and like Celestials and stuff like that in previous games. In fact, actually, the ones they're talking about here, these Celestials that they're referring to, were called Guardians in Skyrim and some of the other games. Now, everyone knows there's, well, I guess not everyone, but there's 13 constellations in the sky of Nirn. 4 of them would be considered these Celestials that they're going into in Craglorn: the Warrior, the Mage, the Thief, and the Serpent. The Serpent does not have an actual month. It just kind of randomly goes wherever the heck it wants to. It's kind of a weird one. But if you actually go into the lore and look, these Celestials were once called Guardians, and each one of them, like the Warrior, for instance, while there's only 3, they have what they call charges, which are the lesser Celestials in the sky, such as the Warrior is the guardian over the tower and the whatever else it is. I don't know right off the top of my head, but that is what they are. So this kind of concept of the Warrior, the Thief, and the Mage and the Serpent have existed in previous lore just under the name of Guardians. So I think it's kind of neat. I'm wondering how they're going to pull it in, because I know this is part of the Trials fight and how they're going to bring that in for storyline wise. But the Celestials technically did exist in previous Elder Scrolls games. So we're going to move on to the next thing. What I really want to know is, how many resurrections are we talking about? Hard to know whether the stuff will be challenging or not without having some sort of idea on the res numbers. I think I hear a plane going by Crabby's house.
Oh, yeah.
Plane, yeah. Or a big truck.
I have my window open because it's pretty hot in my room.
Yeah. All right, so they answered, we're still working out the final numbers, and we think it'll be hard to get a sense of how often you'll need to use them before you've done a trial. But right now, we're allowing 60 resurrections during a trial.
Man, that would be terrible if you got to the last boss and you had like 10 resurrections left and you wiped and that was it.
Well, here's something that's kind of interesting. This is what I was thinking about. I read this earlier. 60 resurrections. I wonder if that counts wipes. Because if
would've-
you have a group of 12 people, you can wipe 5 times, and that's 60 resurrections.
I wonder if that means resurrections during combat.
I think it's all of it.
That's interesting. I
Because
didn't
if it's
think of that,
resurrections
actually.
during combat, okay, that's a fair, decent amount. I don't know how hard it is, but that's a lot. But if they count anytime someone wipes and has to technically resurrect at a shrine, you wipe one time, like the boss wipes your entire party, that's 12 resurrections gone. That allows for 5 complete party wipes without any in-game or in-battle resurrections. 5. So 5 wipes, you fail the trial. What do you guys think about that?
I'm okay with it because it means you really have to play well to avoid dying to everything. That also means that your healers are actually going to have to know how to heal, and your damage dealers are going to have to know how to dodge. Your tanks are going to have to know how to tank, and it just means that your players. Sorry about that. It just means that...
someone in a club right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
No, I was looking up the Guardian Stones, and random web pages usually have ads, so that's what that was. But when you're in these trials, it just comes down to how skilled of a player you are, and that I'm really excited about, because it means you can't be a sucky player trying to go for the leaderboard scores. It's just not going to happen.
Huh. Well, again, that's Thais, she who feeds on your tears. So when you're wiping and crying, she'll be over there going, yum, yes, feed me more. Anyway, all right. So I thought that was kind of neat because I did want to talk about that because I'm thinking the 60 resurrections include wiping because technically you have to choose to resurrect where you stood or resurrect at a shrine, but you're still resurrecting. So a full party wipe, that's 12 right off the bat. That's kind of crazy. It also is going to be interesting to see how long the trials are. Like, for instance, if they were the size of, say, Icecrown Citadel in Warcraft, that dungeon was huge. 5 wipes would be insanely difficult. Not even on bosses. I just mean 5 wipes, period. So I'm curious to see how long these trials actually last to warrant 60 resurrections. Okay. How will trials be accessed? Do they work like public dungeons now? Can people queue for them with the tool, or are people allowed to go in there solo and at least experience the story without beating the 12-player encounters or entering veteran dungeons? Trials can be accessed by either the physical entrance or by using the group finder to assemble a team. You could potentially go into one solo, but the first group of monsters you encounter would wipe the floor with you. I like it. I like it a lot. What do you think, Thais?
I'm hoping that any story that takes place in these trials, because I know that you and we sit there and we listen to every voice actor and we listen to the story. So I'm hoping if you and I are kind of lagging behind, we're going to be able to not cause trouble for the other 10 players, so that we can really sit there and listen to the story that's taking place. That's what I'm hoping. Now, I would be the person who would go in solo to try and just listen to the story, so I'd be the one that's dying over and over again trying to get past the first group of mobs. I'd be able to use all... What did you say, 60? I'd be using all 60 reses on myself while trying to listen to the story.
Well, I would imagine this, just based off the design they have, any storyline stuff like talking to the voice actors would happen in the quote-unquote staging area before you started. Any other story, I think, would just be kind of like when we're running through a public dungeon and the ghosts appear and talk. I think that's how a lot of it will be, because you're fighting against a timer here. I think mostly what they were asking here might have been, if I'm a solo player, can I go in and kill the trial boss by myself?
Which would obviously be a no, because if that was possible, then nobody would ever group with anybody, you know? And I'm glad that it can be accessed via the group finder, because for people like you and I who don't have very many friends, that's probably going to be a tool that we're really going to utilize, and I'm glad that that's in the game. I really am. Because there's some people that just don't like to be in those gigantic guilds, and they need a way to be able to experience all the content that's out there for them.
I both agree and disagree for that just a little bit. I like there to be content that is not feasible for me to see. Because, alright, it might sound dumb, and some people are like, oh, well, I liked... That's one thing I miss from MMOs was the sense of challenge. When I first started playing Ultima Online and early Dark Age of Camelot, not saying that the master levels were hard, but I knew you needed a lot of people to do it, and I never seemed to be able to get groups together. There was content that I'm like, it gave me something to shoot for, versus the Warcraft mentality. And I'm going to say this, the Warcraft mentality is we need to get in there, see it, and then what do we have to shoot for? The next content patch. That's not the mentality that I like. I like the mentality of there's something out there that I have to aspire to beat, and only the top people can beat it. But maybe a few patches down the road, I can then see it. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to go in there if they ever release an expansion where they increase the level cap. You can go in and probably solo it at that point because you'd be over leveled for it. I think they need to provide ways for people to see the content solo only after it is no longer the current content, to give people things to shoot for. And this isn't against solo players or anything like that, not at all. But the problem is once you've seen everything, you have nothing left to do, and then you get bored with the game. At least even the solo players will go, well, in the next patch when they release veteran, or not veteran rank, whatever, but the next adventure zone, and they increase the veteran ranks, I'll be able to put on better gear, and then I won't need 12 people. I will need 6 people because we'll be twice as strong. Or after that, after 2 of them, you're like, I only need 3 people. You know, make it so that they can get into it only after the content's there.
So, I don't know. You're talking about the whole queuing for trials, right?
It was more of the question was asking how you queue for trials are could I go in there and do it by myself? Could I go in and do the veteran solo? And like the guy's question is, are people allowed to go in there solo and at least experience the story without beating the 12-player encounters or entering veteran dungeons? Mm-hmm. So speaking from a solo player perspective, the people who absolutely refuse to group with anyone, how are they going to see this?
Yeah.
And that's where I was saying that after veteran ranks are released a few levels, that then they'll be overpowered, if you will. It's kind of like going back, speeding your way through Shadowfen, getting all the way through Riften and everything like that, and then coming back to Shadowfen at 50 and finishing off the quest you didn't do. You'd be able just to plow through them by yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I kind of hope they deal with these. I want it to be soloable at some point in the future, but it shouldn't be soloable for quite a while. And Thais looks like she has something she wants to say, so let's hear her out.
See, I'm not the average player. I don't play like you. I'm the person who... I'm 10 levels ahead of that dungeon, but if someone needs a player to go back in that dungeon, I'm the one who's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go back. I enjoyed it. I have no reason not to go back. Maybe there's armor sets I need to collect. Maybe I just really want to beat that boss to, a bloody pulp. I feel that no content that is group content should ever be soloable because it's group content, meaning you need a group to complete it. And other players who have already beaten it should want to go back and help. quote unquote newbie players. They should want to. They should want to help other players progress. Why else are all these players gathered in an MMO? Which is kind of contradictory on its own because I am primarily a solo player. I play pretty much with you. Or if I need to do a dungeon, we find friends to do dungeons with. Other than that, I don't run around with large groups of people. That's just how I feel, though.
And I agree. That's one of the things that I liked in the early Warcraft was, especially Burning Crusade and stuff like that in vanilla. Whenever you got new raiders, you had to take them through the different tiers so they could get ready. Especially not maybe one, but a couple of them. You'd have to go back and do Kara again and farm gear for them to get them ready to do Black Temple and the later ones. And I agree, but I'm more referring to the players. Here's a perfect example. Shank from Elder Scrolls Off the Record refuses to group. Even if you were there going, Shank, here I have 10 other people. We will gladly take you through this. He refuses to group with anyone, period.
See, I understand that play style, but I also don't think it makes sense when you're playing an MMO. I feel like if you're going to play this game, you should... I mean, I love Shank, but I really think you should expect to need to play with people at some point because you're playing a multiplayer game.
Right, and well, see, that's part of the thing. That's what I was referring to. This is the perfect question for Shank, if you will, from ESOTR. Is his playstyle is he wants to be by himself. He doesn't have fun grouping with other people. But so even the Thais' question or her answer of I will help. There's people who just would outright refuse help, not for any reason for you, but they don't want to group up. So how do we help those players?
Make sure they can't run it, because I would feel offended if I'm like, yes, I will help you. I will give up the next 2 hours to run you through this super long, hard as crap dungeon, and they go no. I'm like, fine. Well, you shouldn't run it anyway. And I'd feel offended, and then I'd feed on their tears.
Again, she is the one who feeds on your tears. But yeah, that's the point of this question was, could you go into it solo? And currently they're like, no. But maybe sometime in the future, like I said, after a few veteran ranks, maybe you will be able to do some of the group content solo. Thais obviously disagrees as she put her chin up in the air and in defiance was like, no, you should never be able to. So again, I must preface this with Thais' opinions do not necessarily represent the thoughts and opinions of Tales of Tamriel podcast. If you have hate mail, please send to her. Alright, let's answer the last question. Are adventure zones instanced to your group? An adventure zone is a large area where you can explore and meet other groups along the way. The overland terrain is not instanced. However, much of the content you'll find in Craglorn, like delves and points of interest, are instanced to your group. That's kind of neat.
I like that. Yeah, I like it a lot.
It's. I know they're actually gonna fix this in a later patch, but that would solve the public dungeon issues that we've been having. Not even issues really, because it's not an issue. It's not hard and it's not really causing a problem. But that boss monster at the end, you won't be able to farm it with 50 people standing around just swinging at it when it spawns, because all 50 people will run towards that boss, and then all of a sudden everyone disappears but you and your group and go, oh, wait a minute, where'd everyone go? So I like that, and I really do. I think that's really cool. Alright, well, we spent enough time on the Ask Us Anything. Kind of neat. If you guys are interested to hear our theories and stuff, I definitely suggest you go back and listen to episode 12, just the two of us, as Thais and I go over Craglorn, and you can compare what our theories were to this Ask Us Anything. Alright, gonna close that window now because I got too many windows open. Alright, Elder Scrolls Online undergoes some maintenance on 4.15 for scheduled maintenance. There's actually been quite a few scheduled maintenances in the past couple weeks, or in the past week, I would say.
Well, they've had a bunch of bugs that they had to deal with, which I'm okay with. Out of all the bugs that are going around... Go ahead, Crabby.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, this much maintenance for a game that's almost 3 weeks old is fine with me. I prefer having this much maintenance as opposed to none, because that means they're actually doing stuff.
Exactly. I agree. Yes. Yes, they're trying to fix all these things that are happening, and I haven't been experiencing a lot of the problems. And even if I was, the game's still brand new. I'm okay with that.
I do want to preface this by saying I was not having any problems until Crabby joined a group with me, and then all of a sudden I was having... No, you were saying it all day. You were plagued with the terrible infinite loading screens. I just got done going, wow, I've not experienced any of that. No,
that's something I gotta say though, is I was literally having no problems with the game up until this past maintenance on Friday, I believe. And now I feel like I'm constantly getting infinite loading screens, and the chat lag's fixed. Guild chat works fine. That's good.
Now, I wonder if your problems could be anyway attributed to the fact that you're running 50 add-ons at any given time.
I've been getting rid of add-ons. I actually tried it with no add-ons, and I still got a infinite loading screen bug. I'm actually getting another new bug, which is pretty awesome too. Is I'll go to use a way shrine, or I'll try to zone out or into somewhere, and it'll say transfer has failed, and it'll take my gold, and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's awesome.
I've only seen that when the game thinks you're offline, like it did to me before. Like, we were in a party when we were doing that dungeon earlier this week. You guys kept going, I can't even see your health bar, you're offline. And then Thais had it too at the end, and she's trying to get out of the dungeon, and it wouldn't put her. I'm like, you're going to have to log out and back in. That happened to me earlier. If it shows that you're offline, you're still connected to the game world, but the server won't transport you anywhere.
I mean, these kind of bugs, they don't make me want to quit the game. I mean, they're annoying, and I'll get frustrated and be like, all right, forget this. I'm going to play something else for a little while. But, you know, I mean, they're going to get fixed sooner or later. You know, so I'm not too stressed out about it. It's just aggravating is all.
I think it's mostly aggravating is the problem. That's it. And even so, I think it's mild. And again, this is coming from someone who's not really experienced a lot of the problems, but this isn't, to me, game... like. The thing people need to remember about bugs versus mechanic problems, bugs can be fixed. It's not like you're playing the game and it goes, oh, the mechanic is broken, such as it's just not fun, period. Like, it just doesn't work. You know? Like, oh, I can't enter a house on a horse, period, because there's a collision or something like that. Just a weird example. And that is intended. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, here's a perfect one. A mechanic that was not fun that was removed, but it was part of the game. Hunters in WoW having a minimum range. So if things got too close to you, they couldn't do anything if they had a bow equipped. That was a mechanic that they kept in there for years up until they replaced it, because that was a mechanic. It was working as intended. But bugs will be fixed. You know? They're not... You really shouldn't quit a game because there are bugs, unless the developers are not actively fixing them.
Especially not quitting a game with bugs that's only 3 weeks old.
People are forgetting that the game ridiculous. Is so new. Yeah,
it really is. There's been so much chatter in one of the other guilds that I'm in about how they are so tired of this game and everything's broken. And every time they say that, I just want to type in, I've encountered one messed up quest. I've encountered 2 times where I fell through the world, which was easily fixed by relogging. Oh gosh, it's so difficult to relog. Other than that, if the game's 3 weeks old, if you're getting this aggravated over such a tiny thing, you need to have your head checked.
I want to fall through the world. That's one bug I have not encountered yet, and I really want that to happen because I want to see what happens to me.
It's actually kind of funny. This might make you fall through the world. If you stand really close to a wall, any wall, usually in a dungeon it works more, and try and jump, usually a lot of the time you'll fall through the world. And it's just a glitch in the system, just a little bug. No big deal.
I will definitely try that when I log on after the show.
Exactly. We're going to see Crabby running into walls for the next hour, jumping randomly.
Indeed. But yeah, actually, that was something else. We were talking about that. People were like, because Craglorn's set to go onto the PTS. I believe it's tentatively set to go onto the PTS at the end of this month. is what I've been hearing, and probably set to release by the end of May. Pretty good for their first raid instance, I believe. And I think that definitely fits into their 4 to 6 week schedule as well. Might be a little later on this one. But here's something. Someone was like, oh, I'm bored with the game already. There's no end game content for me to do. And I'm sitting there going, guys, it's at this point 420. The game literally only came out less than, at that point when I first, 2 weeks ago. The game has been live for 2 weeks. And you're worried about and they already have it announced. It's not like we've been sitting here going, "Now I have nothing to do." They have it announced. Mm-hmm. You know, it's on the way. And all I'm going to say is, if people look at Warcraft, how long? What is it? The longest to date raid for Siege of Orgrimmar, being stuck raiding that before the expansion. How long is it?
Over a year. I think
over a year.
Yeah.
So the top guilds in the world have already cleared it. And they're not looking to release the next expansion for this game until November of 2014. You've got another 7-8 months of raiding the same content. You should really look at them if you want to see about bad production schedules. Because actually, I saw an interesting graph where it showed the increasing amount of time it's been taking to release from a raid expansion to the next one, and it's insane. It's the amount of time is huge.
I think at this point Blizzard's just playing this game called "How angry can we make our players before they decide to quit?"
See,
that's the game they're playing.
I feel like ESO's taking a weird, they're doing a weird take on things, which I kind of find a little refreshing. Sure, there's Endgame. Craglorn is let's face the facts. Craglorn is the first raid patch. They want to do a 4 to 6 week content cycle. And not every 4 to 6 weeks is going to be a raid patch. There's no way. I mean, sure, we'll probably have Craglorn till probably the summer. We'll probably have Craglorn probably till, I'm going to say worst case scenario, the end of the summer, early fall is how long we're going to have Craglorn for. But I like what they're doing. Is there was that rumor about the Justice patch, which is going to have Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood and a Justice system. They're taking this theme park MMO, and the patches they're adding are adding little features like that are going to make it feel more like a whole game. Mm-hmm. Like features that make it feel more, I don't want to say real, but I don't want to say real. I don't want to say sandboxy, but more wholesome.
Right.
You know, it's hard to describe, but I like...
Just say awesome.
It's going to make the game feel more full. You know?
Right.
Just little things that you encounter constantly that get changed or added to are good.
I see them doing something similar to a raid patch, content patch, or feature patch, raid patch, not even raid, just dungeon patch, if you will. Just not really new features, but new exploring content, whether it be an adventure zone or a dungeon set, and then a feature patch. So it's going to be like Craglorn, Justice System, next set of dungeons, Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, whatever, or however they want to do it. It's all theory, but I think that's what they're going to do. Something like, here's something for endgame, here's something for feature for everyone, endgame, feature, endgame, PvP, feature, whatever they want to do, but I think that's what they're going to do. All right, moving on to the next section, because we do have a lot to go over. I'm actually probably going to skip over these next sections. We actually had 2 patches. I was going to read them, but I don't think we will, to save a little bit of time.
I mean, most of it's bug fixes.
Right. Yeah, definitely they've released patch 1.03 and 1.04. The only one that I really wanted to mention was in patch 1.04, where they fixed an issue where your characters could lose bank expansions you purchase, including items. Now, this is, again, please note that we did not return any items or slots prior to this fix. If your character was affected, please contact customer support. As well as they addressed issue with guild invites that could be causing latency with the social systems. I think one of the problems that was causing issues with the social system was how many people have started getting a huge amount of gold spam or guild invites. I've
Guild
got
invites
lots.
actually. I got one guild invite, maybe like the day after the game came out, and that was it. Actually, this past week, I've been getting one gold email a day, but I've been reporting those people, so that's about it.
I reported one mail spammer, but I have not gotten a guild invite.
Right. Okay. But yeah, so there's some new patches there. Next up is something that I think is kind of neat. The ZeniMax is doing their upcoming community programs that they're doing. So they're actually reaching out, and they're going to be doing a bunch of different not guild spotlights, but spotlights in general for new post-launch website content. So now they're going to start working on doing articles for the site. They will feature guilds, create stories focused on Cyrodiil, favorite builds, lore, all sorts of stuff. And they're looking for input, and this is kind of neat. But they are going to do a guild feature where they will be featuring guilds. Lore exploration, now that's kind of neat. I'm going to be excited for them to start digging into the lore and give us the ZeniMax lore and dig into why certain things happened. And
that I'll like, yeah.
Yeah. They have something called the Battle Master Corner. I think that's kind of neat. What's your favorite build? So they'll be highlighting some different builds and stuff like that throughout the community. Looks like stories from the battlefield, where they're going to do some PvP campaign stuff where you'll be able to write stories about fighting in Cyrodiil. And a screenshot type, Vista type program where I guess they're going to take the best screenshots and feature those. So that's kind of neat. I like how active this community is, and not even the community. I'm talking the developer. They have been pretty upfront. Like, I remember Final Fantasy: A Realm Reborn, when the game first came out and they were having all the launch problems. One of the biggest problems was we heard nothing from the developers for the longest time.
You couldn't log into the game?
Yeah, you couldn't log into the game, but we didn't know anything. Like, they got better, and actually then they got so much that they were doing tweets every, 10 minutes to let people know. But for the first, week and a half, it was dead silence on the point of view of the developers. We had no idea other than the fact we couldn't log in. Nothing. And that was a big problem. People were complaining, guys, we know it's down, but let us know what's going on. And their community has been very not their community, the company has been very outgoing. They listen to their fans, and they do stuff for us, like these community programs to get our names out there. The Tamriel Chronicle, for instance, that list all of fan sites, podcasts, we're on that, and that's amazing thing that I know other games don't do. Warcraft, I don't think they have a single thing. I think they do fan art from time to time, but to find a Warcraft podcast, do they have a weekly newsletter that says what people have done on it? No. Final Fantasy Realm Reborn? No. These other games that don't really kind of showcase what their community is doing. These guys really are, and I like it a lot. I like it a whole lot. All right. Anyone have anything to say about the community, the new community programs?
It's neat.
It's neat. That's a very astute answer there, Crabby. I like that a lot. All right, last piece of news for the evening is the launch of the new Craglorn website. Have you guys both seen this and looked at it?
Yeah, not that much information on it, but it's neat. It's neat again.
It's a hype website. That's what it is. It's kind of like I know Warcraft does this. I'm bringing them up again. Every time they have a new patch, they do a special website that's almost identical to this for new raid content that kind of give you just a little bit of a taste, going, hey, this is what's coming. This is what you're going to get to do.
I actually like the website because it does just that. When I sit here and look at it, I go, wow, I really just want to delve into this now. But yeah, you can't just yet. You can't. And it's really just such a tease, and it makes me sad, but it makes me excited, and ugh.
Darn you, ZeniMax, you're such a tease. All right, we'll go through this because I want to point out a few things. First off, they show us they have the trailer up, which I love the trailer. And they give kind of a... What I like here is if you guys see the map location where Craglorn actually exists.
Yeah, it connects Daggerfall to Cyrodiil, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like the southern reach section, because you can see Skyrim. It looks like Skyrim would actually just border Craglorn to the northeast of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be all of Skyrim up there. But yeah, so this section here, I was kind of curious when they announced the name, like, where is this going to be? You know, like I've seen the map.
There's so much of this map. I mean, we've only played on Morrowind, Cyrodiil, and Skyrim. Technically, they can really do whatever the hell they want to the rest of the map in terms of adding zones and stuff, because they're not in any other game. Well, Daggerfall kind of, but it's mostly there.
Yeah, so, and it also it's process generated, so it's random other than towns and stuff. So they really do. Other than, and even the areas that we're in now, like that whole, like in Morrowind, for instance, that whole I don't know what you would call that, peninsula up there that looks like a tail, if you will. We've never been there. We've only been to Vardenfall, and we've been to Solstheim, and technically we've been inside Mournhold, the city, during the Tribunal expansion. We've really not seen. They've had creative license to do, like, Stonefalls we've not seen. We've not really seen Deshaan. We've never seen anything Blackmarsh.
I believe is Deshaan Morrowind or Blackmarsh?
It's Morrowind.
Shadowfen is Blackmarsh, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they do have a lot, and they can also break things down. They have a lot of content here that they can really break in and do some interesting stuff, especially if they do like almost like an underground expansion, if you will, such as let's just go in and say perfect side, this section near of Cyrodiil that would contain Anvil and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. A lot of Ayleid ruins, so you'd have a Cyrodiil background, but you could have extensive maps underground for Ayleid cities. You know what I mean?
Dwemer cities too, yeah.
Oh yeah, I imagine Skyrim, when they unlock the rest of that, will be pretty big. And here's another thing they could really do: the Velothi Mountains, where that border Skyrim, was a huge amount of Dwemer activity in there. Yes, while we still technically have access to it, we go through zones. They could release that as a mini zone, or like a dungeon type crawling experience to go through those. Because we really don't... The Velothi Mountains are a border between Stonefalls and the Rift. So they could really dig into that and really expand upon all of that as well. So they show us that, and they talk about, how does they say this? It's rally your allies and travel to a land besieged by strange creatures, marauding orcs, and beings of immense power plummeted from the sky. As your party explores the forbidden landscapes, you'll engage in extensive group quests, confront magical anomalies and new enemies, and discover caves and delves. Neat. Now, here's the thing I wanted to really point out. Now, they're talking about the celestial threat, and they kind of go into this. They say an army of ancient Yakutans lay siege to the west, being led by a being known as the Celestial Warrior. And they have an image of him on the screen. In the east, a torrent of Acronox defiles the land under the command of another of these beings, the Celestial Mage. What drives them to their acts of destruction? Journey to Craglorn to unravel the mystery of the constellations, but don't go alone. Here's the thing I was talking about. I think there's going to be 2 trials just from this. The Warrior and the Mage.
From what we can tell, there's 3 bosses.
Well, this
in the video, in the trailer.
Right. But this goes back to the... What are the trials? Are they a giant room where you just fight the Celestial Warrior? Or are they a mini dungeon that has a couple bosses into it? You know what I mean? I think there'll be 2 time trials, the Warrior and the Mage. Maybe more. I would think they would have one for the Thief and the Serpent as well, but maybe that'll come a little later. But just from this, I imagine that we'll have 2 trials. possibly I would venture to say they've hidden, and we have 4. We have the trial of the warrior, the trial of the mage, the trial of the thief, and the trial of the serpent. That's what I would guess. Or at least up to the thief, and have the serpent be the questing arc. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, that was what I was thinking of. And it looks like they have some new model designs for enemies and things like that.
What is a Welwa?
A Welwa?
Yeah.
Apparently that 4-eyed dog over there.
Yeah. Are you ready to face the Welwa? Maybe. I'm not sure. Possibly.
Sure. But yeah, no. Now they go into trials. Craglorn was treacherous enough before the stars disappeared. Who could put up a fight against the overwhelming danger now? The Undaunted, the Madcap Daredevils, and Dungeon Delvers of Tamriel have taken up the challenge, and they're looking for volunteers, aka cannon fodder, to join them. I added the cannon fodder. As part of a 12-person group, you can brave the trials of the Etherean Archive and Hel-Ra Citadel. So it looks like there are 2 to prove your worth and go head-to-head with the Celestials. So there it is. And that is the Craglorn website.
See, I like 2 different actual areas for bosses because it adds some variety to it.
Right, maybe your group's not doing so well on one and you can move on to another, try out the other one. Yeah, I agree. All right, at this point in time, we are going to move on to our Elder Scrolls Online discussion topic. Okay, I'm going to try my best to keep
I hate this discussion topic. I'm just going to say it.
Me too. And the only reason why I felt like I had to do it was because of all the garbage being spewed out, negativity from the community, from news outlets, really. The topic we have chosen is Be Your Own Judge. Over the past few days, I've seen a number of, and I put this in quotes, reviews from various outlets that give bad reviews to the game, saying things like, wait till it's free to play, or it isn't what I expected, so it's bad, you shouldn't play it. Some people in the guild and stuff like that who've been in our event heard me kind of rant off about this earlier in the week, but it's gotten so bad, I've actually removed people on my Twitter that I was following that were all they were news sites that were putting up things, but I couldn't stand reading them anymore because some were good, some were bad, some were kind of meh. And I'm not talking about here, there, whatever. If it's a bad review for the game that's bad, I agree. And to our listeners, they know us. We've gotten several things that they know we're not going to white knight it. Yes, I absolutely love the Elder Scrolls world. I will admit that right now. But if the game is junk, I will also mention that. You'll be the first to hear me say it's junk. And there are bugs in the game. We talked about it earlier. But the bugs in the game will be fixed eventually. But they're not even the things people are reviewing and that are complaining about. I'm not even going to say what article really set me off on this, but the person who they had giving this article literally said that they were playing for about 30 hours. Now, naturally, that's pretty good. I would say for an MMO, that's a little low, but you can kind of get where things are kind of going, I believe. That for a main website, 30 hours is more than I can honestly say. That's pretty good. All right, fine. But the thing they went on saying was, I'm waiting for the moment I felt like when I went outside of Oblivion, when you step outside the sewers, or in Skyrim when you come out of the cave and you just see the vast world. He's like, I'm still waiting for that moment. Like, it hasn't come up. And I'm waiting for that point when this MMO sits up and makes a claim to be anything but familiar. I'm going to tear apart this sentence, and Crabby, Thais, you guys can jump in whenever you would want. This is kind of a jealous rant here. But who in creation do you think you are to say something like that? And this is the main reason why I say this. We're all different people. We all have different opinions I don't know about you. I felt that way when I step out of that house in Davin's Watch and look out at the world and go, oh my. Every time I walk into a new zone, I get the, now what do I want to do kind of feeling. I get that feeling. But the way they made it sound like, oh, the game doesn't have it. Well, maybe it doesn't have it for you. But as a good journalist, first off, this guy's not a good journalist. I hope he dies in a fire. All right, that's a little excessive.
Whoa.
I hope he gets eaten by one of those Dreugh and gets put into a giant mud mound, because he's not a good journalist. Not at all.
You know how I feel about this is, sure. Whenever I go into a new zone, I get a little bit overwhelmed, and I sit there and I go, all right, I think I'm going to log off for a few minutes to process this, because I don't want to start a whole new zone right now. Because knowing how the game is, you got to explore to find everything. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the exploration is there. Saying that, the game obviously prefers you to play in third person. Playing in third person in any game artificially makes the world feel smaller to me, because you're not seeing all the little details in third person, you're just going. Mm-hmm. When you play this game in first person, it, in a weird way, it makes the game feel a lot bigger. At least that's how I feel. Personally, I can't really play in first person because I need that field of view slider. I can't handle the field of view that's currently in the game. Right. But that's how I feel like if you were to play this game in first person, it would feel a lot bigger than in third person. In a weird perception kind of a way.
Oh, I agree, totally. Third person does make it feel MMO-ish. And it does. But the thing is, you have the option. So to say it doesn't because you can go into third person is not the developer's fault. It's your fault. But the main thing as a journalist who's doing, and this is a review. This isn't an impressions. This is a review. So to bring your personal feelings into it, you're biased. You don't do that in a review. That's why I say this guy is terrible, and I hope he gets eaten by Dreugh.
If this game remains a niche game like Eve with a couple 100,000 subscribers for the rest of its life, I'm happy with that. As long as they can pump out the content they claim they can do, I'm fine with that. I don't care if this game has 10 million subscribers or 100,000 subscribers. As long as the game is still, doing the content they promised, then I'm fine with it.
Right.
So I don't think everyone's going to be positive about it. I think there's a good amount of positivity that I've seen. Like MMORPG.com is actually fairly positive, which is kind of surprising.
Right. And it's not even that. Like, it's not even subscriber numbers I'm after here, or anything of that nature. It's just people who read reviews like this and then get all me turned off, especially when they make it sound like it's bad. This isn't in impressions. If you read impression ones, you get it because that's the author going, hey, I am doing a part of myself into this, so you kind of see it from my point of view. But a review it should be very methodical, very logical, and should point out, if there's a glaring bug, I'd be the first to write, someone actually asked me, a friend of mine asked me, should they get this game? And they're like, well, I played during beta, and it was fun, but the grouping was messed up. Has it gotten any better? I outright said, not really. They're working on ways, but it hasn't. Like, in terms of phasing and stuff, I could not lie to the person and say, I'm not saying it's not fun. I think it's a blast. They said they're working on a way of making phasing so you can group with your friends a little easier, but I wasn't going to lie to her and say, oh, no, it's great. Or anything like that. Oh, you should, just because I want her to play the game. It was no, it's not ready yet. Maybe check back a little later.
I mean, I'm a fanboy, but I've had one of my friends who plays Warcraft hardcore, and he asked me, he's like, hey, should I get this? I said, I was like, you know what, dude, honestly, I don't think you'd like it at all. He was like, why? I was like, it's not a all right, so Warcraft is like a lobby game where you kind of queue for everything. Elder Scrolls is so much more than that in an exploration sense, and how long it takes to level. This particular friend of mine hates that stuff. So I was like, you probably just wouldn't like it. Mm-hmm. And that's where you get bad reviews, when somebody thinks a game is something else, and they don't get that.
Right, and I agree. And that's, if I had a Warcraft buddy who was only an arena player, only like to do arena.
Well, that's what my friend was.
Yeah,
he just played arena.
I would say no. Yeah, definitely don't get this because you won't like the massive PvP that's in it. But
I mean,
that's
if people who love PvP, if you want to strive to be Emperor, that is definitely a fantastic goal. The only problem is you need to be. The only problem with wanting to be Emperor is not only do you have to play all the time to get the points, your faction also has to win. So that's kind of the only other part.
But again, the way we're looking at it was from a very logical, would they like these systems? A lot of the reviews I see that were negative often don't even pick apart. Like, the things that they're saying are wrong with it were all things that were, in my opinion, personal opinion, Here's another one I want to go into. Where Morrowind might have spurned you on with the promise of the unknown, the Elder Scrolls Online furnishes you with an experience you've already had if you played a fantasy MMO in the last couple of years. That you could say that about any MMO. Technically, World of Warcraft did that. You've experienced an EverQuest MMO, in the past couple of years. Or to say Morrowind spurned you on the promise of unknown, you're playing a game based in the Elder Scrolls universe. You're gonna see some new stuff, but it's not toted of, oh, it's brand new. Like, we're bringing you back to things you remember from the past 20 years.
See that's the thing with this game. If you're not an Elder Scrolls fan, I'm not saying if you hate Elder Scrolls. I'm saying if you never really played their games, you're gonna go into this. You're gonna go, well, I mean, yeah, elves, orcs. It's a generic fantasy setting. Which let's be completely honest, it is. It's a fairly generic fantasy setting, but if you know deeper lore about the game, the Aedra, the Daedra, the Emperor, and all that, you'll appreciate it a lot more. So people who aren't into the Elder Scrolls lore probably will think it's very generic, which I understand completely. I fully understand that.
To an extent, like I said that to someone else as well. I think it's a great game, though, in of its own merits. It has fun combat, I believe. I think the skill system, the way to progress your character is very unique. It reminds me of kind of a hybrid between normal leveling, Ultima Online, and like skill-based systems. That other games are having where you build decks and stuff like that. Even Guild Wars 2 did. You had 10 buttons technically, but really you didn't. You had 5 buttons that were weapon-based, and then you did other abilities, in the other slots. So you could do deck builds. And that's kind of a popular thing nowadays. But the game itself is special in and of itself. But like you said, if you know the Elder Scrolls lore and are a fan of the Elder Scrolls in general, I think it has more for you because you're going into a world that that you're in love with, like me. But even if it wasn't the Elder Scrolls, I would think it was a fun game by itself. Just the crafting systems are fun. I think they're a step above a lot of other games.
What's funny is the first trailer that came out in 2012, I want to say.
Yeah.
When I first heard about all this, I was like, this game is going to be garbage. It's going to be a generic piece of crap. I have no interest. I'm just going to play Warcraft. I played the first beta back in November of 2013. And I was like, I hate the combat. This game sucks. I don't like this. I played the beta again in January, and I was like, it's not bad. They made improvements that I didn't think were going to happen. Played it again, and I started to like it. And since launch, I fell in love with the game. I can't believe how refreshing the combat alone feels compared to other MMO. I love the combat. I would have a hard time going back to an MMO that does not have action combat because it's so much fun in this game.
I agree, and it is a lot of fun. And I feel like, unlike other games, I feel like when combat hits, it feels, especially in Melee, it's weird to say it because there is no tangible feeling, but I can tell when I miss and I can tell when I hit. It's impressive.
If you're gonna fight a monster that knocks you down, try to go into first person because it's really cool. You get hit and you throw your arms up and you're like, whoa! It's actually really cool. You should try it.
I'm gonna just go find someone. The next one, again, is perception, but I kind of get it. The geographical area the game covers is expansive, but I don't know why this person wrote it but don't calibrate your senses of scale against other games in the series. I agree to an extent. I think the sense of scale, I think the zones are bigger than the other games, but because they're broken into zones, it feels smaller. Because, for instance, the Rift is, I believe, bigger than the Rift in...
Oh, yeah, it's way bigger.
Way bigger. But the problem is, there's a point where you zone to go to Eastmarch, and that makes it feel smaller. You know what I mean? It's again, this is a perception thing. Technically, in terms of actual walking distance, it's way bigger. But because everything is zoned off to an extent, for whatever reason, whether it's server side, why they went with this route over just one open world. Most games nowadays don't do that for hardware points of view. It's easier to maintain servers that only handle a zone versus an entire world. Even Warcraft has done that. Like, their first vanilla was all one big open world. But every expansion afterwards has been zoned. If you've noticed that, everyone after vanilla is zoned off. So yeah, I mean, I get that one actually is legit. And the other thing is the view distance is a little different. Again, because it's zoned, you can't climb to the top of High Hrothgar and look out and see everything. Because it's kind of zoned. They may pixel, like, paint it in if you were able to get that high. But there is that sense of scale that's not there because the other games were more open to an extent. But in terms of size, it's a weird... Size is bigger, but because of zones, it feels smaller. I'll give them that one. That's like the one legit complaint they had. The journey from 1 to 20 with the Daggerfall Covenant took 26 hours time and almost entirely spent in green fields, gray cliffsides, and brown cottages. You know, I don't know. He says landmark Elder Scrolls locations like the cities of Daggerfall and Wayrest are much the same as the other. Dedicated fans of the series may have fantasized about visiting these places in modern iteration, but I doubt they fantasized about visiting them like this. How do you know what I fantasized? One thing.
I think this guy was thinking the game was going to be hyper fantasy craziness, which Elder Scrolls has never been hyper fantasy.
Yeah, I agree.
When I say hyper fantasy, I mean like, oh man, this tower is... Well, there are large towers in Elder Scrolls. Well, I mean, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, colorful.
Right.
When I think hyper fantasy, I think colorful, vibrant colors, over-the-top shoulder pads, things like that. I think this guy was kind of expecting that.
Right.
And Elder Scrolls is I don't want to say realistic, but way more gritty than that.
Oh, I agree. And I think we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it in the guild or if we talked about it during a podcast. I don't remember. But we were talking about die system. Like, if they ever did that, what we would like. I absolutely refuse. Like, I almost don't want them to put a die system in, only for the fact I don't want to see people walking around in bright pink colors. Because the dark... I don't
think you'll see that.
I doubt it.
Too, I don't think you'll see bright pink colors anyway.
You're right. And I agree.
Oddly enough, now, at the top of the show, I said I made a Breton set of gear, and it is actually purple. Like, it's like darkish purple, but it's purple enough to where I feel a little funny. So, I mean...
Right. But the way they design stuff is they design it in such a way that it does feel real to life. Your shoulders don't have giant anti-gravity rocks floating off of them. Things like that. Yeah, it's not super fancy in that point of view. But I think the also thing is here's where his one statement before this kind of contradicts this statement, the sense of scale. Yeah, Daggerfall is pretty much that. Because that's the region of Tamriel that is that way. But go over to Morrowind, it is vastly different. Go up into the Rift, it is vastly different.
Go into Morrowind, it feels like you're on a different planet. Almost.
It does.
Like, it's crazy.
Face, why don't you tell me this? What do you think about it? Like, they were talking about here, Daggerfall Covenant. He's like, everything felt like just green fields and gray cliff sides, brown cottages. Now, the zones are pretty big and stuff like that, but judging just from what we know about the game, do you feel there is a difference in the type of landscape that there is in the game? Like, going from one zone to the other, do you think that Tamriel has a wide amount?
Oh, I definitely do, especially considering in the one zone there were gigantic mushrooms. In the zone we're in right now, I have not seen one gigantic mushroom. Not one.
You just want to eat them. Just eat
And-
those big mushrooms.
I kind of want to sleep on them. That's what because I imagine giant mushrooms to be squishy, so I just want to lay on top of one and kind of sink into it.
It's
And
kind
just
of
fall asleep.
like when you cut, like if you cut it up, because you know how the underside has those fans, if you will. I don't know how it is, but I don't know the best way to describe it. If you
Mushrooms
flip it,
gross me out. You get that weird thing that grosses you out. It's mushrooms for me. I don't know why.
I love mushrooms. I love eating raw mushrooms, and even though most people say they have no taste, I think every mushroom has its own distinctive taste, and I love the way they all taste. But anyway, I do. I feel like every zone has its own landscape. The world in that zone feels uniquely alive to itself as opposed to any other zone. Each zone is alive. And each zone is different than the zone before it and the zone after it, even down to the vegetation or the color of the grass and what plants are growing. And when I'm farming my alchemy mats, I know that I will specifically walk along a river if I'm looking for something in particular. Or I will start wandering around trees near rivers if I'm looking for mushrooms. Like, they took the time to add those little details. And as with what Crabby said earlier, when I go into a new zone, I'm completely overwhelmed. Where do I start? Where do I go? Do I want to go straight? Do I want to go left? Do I want to go right? Before we even went into Shadowfen, we said to each other, you know what? We're going to go to bed right now, and we can tackle the new zone tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
but here's the perfect thing, and since you mentioned Shadowfen, I want to point this out. Again, here's where the guy's limited amount of play really cut in. He only spent 20 hours. Of course you're not getting out. But look at the transition from where we went. I'm not even counting Bleakfall and Boyfolian. We're going to skip those. We'll start in Stonefalls. Very rocky, very volcanic. But then as we went down into Deshaan, we still had the tropes of Morrowind, the giant mushrooms, but the grass more flowed in. More waterways came into play, because we were going from the volcanic areas down into the more fields, following down south into Shadowfen, the Black Marsh. We transist from the grassy fields and the giant mushrooms and the little waterways to more waterways, giant swamp trees. The mushrooms are now gone, but the swamp trees are there. The bog water is everywhere, and you can see the transition. Now, again, that took us way more than 30 hours.
When I was in Stonefalls, I actually felt warm, which makes me feel sick. I can't stand being warm. I much prefer to be cold, but just being around all that lava and the way when heat is in an area, it actually looks like it's hot. Your screen is warped a little bit to give it that effect. So when you're walking around Stonefalls, you feel warm and it's gross and
It actually melts your monitor. It's out of control.
it's just horrible. But then when you transition down to Shadowfen, it feels... I personally feel like my character is muggy and just moist and sweaty and...
Stay moist.
Well, that would be appropriate in the Black Marsh area. The zones do change. I haven't been seeing nearly as many rocky outcrops as before because we're all in the marshlands. So whatever this guy was seeing, he must have been seeing it through glasses that were just impairing his vision, because I don't agree.
Again, this comes from the guy being very short-sighted, trying to write a quick review about a game where he didn't really do much. like 1 through 20 in Daggerfall, yeah, he spent all that time in probably Glenumbra and moving on to, what is that, Benkorai or something like that. He never went to Stros Makai because he probably just avoided that quest, I would imagine, or else he would have mentioned that. But he didn't. He kind of pussyfooted around, if you will, in Glenumbra and was like, well, everything looks the same. I'm bored. You know? Next off, he talks a little bit about quests. I'm not going to go into it a whole lot, but he pretty much is like, yeah, there's kill quests, fetch quests, simple object finding. There is, but I don't know about you guys. These quests, if you listen to the stories, really dig me in. Like, and they're kind of neat. Like,
well, see, that's the thing. That's what SWTOR did with their quests as well. Every game you play is going to have these quests that fall into these categories, but they are presented to you in a way where it feels deeper than that.
Right. I mean, if you really boil it down, what is it? If you go into let's look at military, you know, a surgical hit's nothing more than a kill quest. You know, a sniper team, it's a kill quest. Kill them, come back, get your loot. Fetch quest. Oh, we have a search and rescue team. Well, that's a fetch quest. Go grab them, bring them back. If you really want to boil things down into simplicity, you can. But, I mean, it is. Like, you're not going to say, oh, there's no kill quest, there's no fetch quest. But it's the way you present it.
See, I would actually go as far as to say ESO does not have any of the standard quests. Because ESO is so clever in disguising their quests with their epic storytelling, their beautiful and rich environment, and just the amounts of NPCs you run into. They don't feel to me like I'm questing. It doesn't feel like a kill quest. It doesn't feel like a go for quest. I just get so engrossed by playing that the quests are just it doesn't even feel like a quest. I'm talking to this guy. He needs help. So to me, that's help. Not only that, but how many quests have made me cry? Because the story is just that good.
Problem is, people don't listen to the stories.
You know what I found pleasantly surprising is the puzzles in this game are harder than in Skyrim. Now, let's look at Skyrim's puzzles. You got the doors, the ancient doors. You get a claw, you turn it over, it says, oh, bear, owl, dragon. Okay, you line the door up, done. You got the, you got the things you got to turn that have the snake, the whale, or the bird on it.
Right.
Literally, you look 10 feet up in the air and it shows the order of it. In Skyrim, I've come across puzzles in this game where if you do not read a particular book, you are not going to know what you're doing.
Like the one in Shade Astora with trying to get around the pond.
It took me a half an hour to do that because I read the book and I opened the book, I didn't read it, and it disappeared.
Yep.
And I was like, oh crap, how do I do this?
I had to look online.
I had to look up how to do it. It's like you'll come in like there's quests where you have to place certain items in certain spots, and you kind of gotta know what you're doing. Like, you know, it's just the not quests, puzzles. The puzzles are good in this. I really like the puzzles. There's enough puzzles in the game where it's not overwhelming, but there's not too few puzzles. So I mean, I like it.
I just have to point out that the first time I went to one of those doors in Skyrim, it took me 2 hours to figure out that I had to turn the claw over. Yes.
I had to Google
figure out how to do it.
I Googled it. I was like, how the hell do people know how to open these doors? They're like, turn the claw over. And I was like, oh, that is so stupid.
I was sitting there for 2 hours trying to figure out what to do until I was in my inventory. I'm like, oh, isn't this claw pretty? Let me just turn it real quick. And then there it was. Like, you've got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that was besides the point.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, the way they do quests in the game, you're never going to get away from the basics, no matter what quest. I don't care. Go to Wildstar. That's toting to be a new, like, game breaking, whether or not it is. I don't know. I don't really follow it. But any game that really says, oh, they're game break, the only way you're ever going to be industry changing, you know, like definitely groundbreaking and new, would be to remove all quests entirely. That would be new.
I'm a fanboy of Elder Scrolls Online, and I liked. I think WildStar is okay, but their quests don't get much more generic than their quests in that game.
Right.
I mean, those quests are Warcraft quests to the extreme.
Well, I think that's one of the things when you talk about the quest. Like, they do have kill quests, but Warcraft is insanely linear about it. It's literally, go kill 10 of these. Like, they give you an exact number. These ones at least try to hide it a little bit by going, hey, you should go and clear out that den. They don't tell you. They just, it doesn't update till you finish. You know, you've killed a certain number that's kind of hidden, and it makes you feel like, hey, and then it phases you into a den that doesn't have any. And then you're like, oh, great, awesome. So it's definitely, I think the only way you're going to get revolutionary with quest is to remove them, really, because otherwise everything will be broken down to kill quest, fetch quest, or simple object find. There's really not much else you can do.
The one type of quest that I don't see in this game, though, is the go for quests. You know, go for eyeballs. Go collect eyeballs, which always annoyed me in WoW, because an NPC would tell you to go kill those rats and collect their eyeballs. Well, 20 rats later, you have one eyeball. Well, there's a lot of rats running around without eyeballs.
You know what I love though? There was a quest in Warcraft where it was like you gotta get these bat eyeballs, I think, in some zone, and I would kill a bat and it would only give me one eyeball. I'm like, that's weird. I killed the next bat and it gave me 3 eyeballs. I was like, oh, that's really weird, but okay.
Why is bat number 2 carrying bat number 1's eyeball around? And where is he carrying it exactly? Yeah, yep. Yeah. I don't see a lot of those go for quests. I do like the fetch quests, though. I do. Where you have to go collect, I don't know, healing pouches from around the city. The quests feel so much more dynamic in this game, and I do every single quest.
It's definitely just presentation, because they do have those, but they make it...
It is presentation. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But it is presentation, but you know what makes it... A lot of people knock on phasing because it doesn't work right or grouping is messed up with it. But let me tell you, though, when you finish a quest line, and that final quest is kill 10 of these, and when you actually see your results of, oh man, this village has all these monsters gone now, forever, in my game... That is also cool to see.
It is.
It feels like you impacted the game by doing those quests that are oh so generic.
I like phasing. I must be the only person that enjoys phasing. Oh, you do too? Okay.
Not
the only one.
When Wrath of the Lich King came out for Warcraft and they had their first phased area, which was like Ice Crown, people hated it. And I thought it was the best thing in the entire game. I love phasing so much.
All right, we're going to move on quickly on this one because we hit that. The next thing, he harps on combat a little bit. He does say the melee combat is nice. Heavy overhand swing blow. You feel it come in. You feel it bounce off your shield. Heavy thunk. He's like, it's not groundbreaking, but it's success for the game. Again, only groundbreaking thing you'll ever do in a game is to remove combat in general. I mean... It is like what really is groundbreaking other than maybe not having it at all. That would be groundbreaking, because there's always got to be combat. But I like it for an MMO. I love the combat. But he does say the melee combat feels good. But he talks about how archery suffers from lack of impact, and magic feels more like other MMOs.
You know what? I agree with him on this point. I think archery in this game is not that fun. In Skyrim, they use physics, the game Byro engine or whatever the hell it is. It makes archery feel like you're actually shooting an arrow. You know, in Elder Scrolls Online, you're just blinking away at your target. Doesn't matter where you shoot, really. I understand that. I think archery could use a big overhaul. And, you know, as a sorcerer, I also agree that, see, you know, it's hard to agree. Like, I love flashy, crazy stuff, but the magic in this game is pretty amped up, like, to a lot of effects going on. And in Skyrim, your magic started out really pitiful, and it really didn't get super intense as much as it does in this. So I can kind of agree with them, but not it's not bad. I mean, it's not terrible.
Right. Well, here's my problem. And I don't mean to cut you off. I'll let you go right after. I had to put this out though. Here's the problem. If you wanted to mark that in there, he needs to mark MMOs function different. If you know anything about hardware, you couldn't have the physics of a single player game because you have to render the physics on the client side sends it, the server side receives it. The latency would not archery would not be fun because by the time your client sent the response saying, "Okay, I'm hitting here," the server would go, "Nope, that's a miss because the character's over here now." Especially if you had any latency, it would be terrible.
So one way I could see they can make archery better. I don't even know if it's possible or not, but if they could add locational damage for just archery, would be great. Like if they could do headshots, or you start off slow, do a headshot or a body shot, make like a little target. Like I don't know if that's possible, but I think it would help immensely.
When it comes to the magic, I don't agree because it's not just a point and click. Ever since I moved to using my controller for when I want to play relax and I'm just exploring, I've noticed that
You use a controller?
Yeah, I've been using a controller.
Yeah, I got it working.
How is the controller with this? I'm sorry, totally random, but I'm curious.
I am thoroughly enjoying it. Now, I wouldn't use it in, say, a dungeon. It's more if you want to explore, you want to, maybe gather a bunch, or you're fighting in a little cave, things like that, where you can kind of sit back, but the controller works perfectly. It's a lot of fun moving around. You can set the controller to do anything and everything you need to do except maybe browse menus.
Do you do first person or third person?
I do third person with the controller.
It's interesting.
But I do. I love my controller. I sit back in my chair, my cat cuddles on my lap, and I just have a grand old time with my controller. I love it. But when I'm using the controller, I really have to aim better or my spells will miss. I've noticed that a lot with my controller. And it makes healing a little more difficult because you really have to be good with aiming, which is why I suggest not using it in a dungeon. But to me, the magic in the game, I like the way the magic feels. I like how long it takes for like my fireballs to hit the enemy. I like the spell effects. They're not too extravagant where it's blinding the area around the player. It's just the right amount of an effect to make it so that there is an effect. And you did a spell right there. That's where it was. It's the perfect amount of effects. I thoroughly love my mage.
I'm gonna say a few things. I would disagree about the controller. I think it works great, but I don't have I say personally I wouldn't use it, but some people are pretty good with a controller, like Wicked. I think it would be better if someone's used to it. I think our sense, and the way I have it set is our sensitivity is different. If you really tweaked at it, like that was the only thing, you could probably get it to be pretty crazy. But again, I prefer my mouse and keyboard. But it does actually work really, really well. And if you want to try it, if you're good with a controller and you're willing to take the time to adjust, like I noticed that when I did the default. I adjusted speed a little bit. I think the mouse movement, the one we have for mouse movement, analog stick is a little slow, at least on my side. I think if you increased it, it'd probably be a little better. But that's personal opinion, really.
If anyone is interested in trying to use the controller, message Aggelos or Tier Eater, and we can tell you how we set up ours. Because our controller, how we have it right now, we can do anything with the controller except browse menus, and it works really, really well.
Right. The other thing, I'm going to get back into the game. I think the combat is definitely super good. I think it's on par. Like, I didn't play much Terra other than when you were playing it, but I think their aiming was good for ranged. It still had that soft target. You want to see a game that had bad ranged? Play Guild Wars 2. There was no targeting in such a way that you had to put a crosshair. Like, I could turn my camera around and be looking the other direction with my archer, and he'd still hit the target. It didn't matter. As long as you were targeting them, your bow would hit.
That can happen in Elder Scrolls, but it only happens if you start casting an ability, then spin around.
Well, that's, again, here's the thing that with the hit, for people who don't know, the hit was already registered. The server side said, okay, as soon as you hit the button, it does the calculations, go, does it hit, does it not? So that's why you can do that. You couldn't start it pointing away, because then it goes, nope, sorry. But the calculations happen faster than the spell effects. The spell effects in reality, if they did everything by calculations, the game would be insanely boring visually wise, because everything would be happening in instant. The animations are only solely for the user's aesthetic benefit, because everything, like when I go to swing my sword, like when I have it over my head, the damage is already calculated. It already knows how much it's going to hit for, because the program goes, does he hit? Yes or no. If no, do this. If yes, do this. And it goes, yes. Okay, well, he absolutely hit. And then it does a random number generator to determine how much damage. My character might still be in a swing, but I've already hit. In all intents and purposes from the computer side. Animations are solely for, our visual pleasure. Otherwise, this would just be a text-based game. That's literally all it would be. But I think it's definitely a step. Could they improve? Absolutely. No game's perfect. Is it good for what it is? I think it's a lot better than what the guy pointed out, especially if you look at it, play this and then go play Guild Wars 2 and do a range, and you'll see how you really don't even have to pay attention to do range. You don't even have to be looking. You just hit your buttons, as long as you target something with a mouse click first. So there's no even soft aiming like this has. All right, moving on. One of Elder Scrolls Online's biggest weaknesses as an MMO is often becomes a worse game when large number of players are involved in the same activity. I agree. This one I actually legitly agree with.
I think there's a caveat to this. Excuse me. I think he ran into a lot of delves and saw a ton of people sitting there trying to kill one boss that spawns every 2 seconds.
I think, well, that as well. Or you'll notice in some quests where, say you're going up to fight a single monster or something like that, and you get one hit on it, and all of a sudden you finish the quest.
Yeah.
Another one that really kind of ticked me off was we were doing one in Deshaan where we were talking to a guy, and another guy who wasn't in our party talked to him, and he was just clicking through the quest. But because we had engaged, the quest was literally just saying, go find this guy.
Yeah, that's happened to me too, actually, yeah.
That's something I think they could improve on, because I agree with that, because I wanted to hear what the guy said, but as soon as the guy activated the quest, anyone who was in the general vicinity got an updated quest marker going, oh, yep, okay, now kill the next thing that happens. But I wanted to set it off. I agree, that is busted, and I think they need to work on that.
Certain things it does very well. Like, dark anchors are great. Even if you have 10 people at a dark anchor, it's still not, I mean, you still kill stuff fairly fast, but it's not instant death.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like even the world bosses, I've been in a group of 4 people, and we've died to world bosses, because some of those are crazy.
I agree.
I think it's kind of an if type of generalization. Like, if you're doing this particular thing, it's bad.
Right. And yeah, delves, for instance, when you're doing the things, it's kind of immersion breaking and gameplay breaking to come across this supposedly really hard boss and have 50 people standing around a circle waiting for it to spawn. They are going to fix that in terms of lowering the rewards so people don't do that. But even so, like this quest thing earlier, I think that needs to be changed, because that wasn't fun for us, because we wanted to talk to him, we wanted to set it off. We didn't want to just be running by the area and someone kicks it off, you know? So I do agree. There are certain things that need to be fixed with that. But overall, that is the end of that review. But here's the main thing I really want to do when we go over the review, and that's why I wanted to discuss this. The reviews like this, unless they're very, very literal and very, very, like the author steps away and provides cold, hard facts, most reviews bring in bias. And with bias, like, I'll tell you right now, Titanfall, worst game in the world. I hate it. Totally biased. I don't know. I hate shooters. That automatically means I hate it. Would you trust my review? If I wrote that, would people who follow me go, oh, if Aggelos says it's bad, it's bad? Honestly, I've never played it. and I have no desire to because I don't care for that kind of game. I don't like it. So I would honestly, even if I played it and it was a fairly good game, I might lean towards giving it lower reviews just because of my personal bias.
And on the flip side, as an example, have you ever played Dynasty Warriors?
Oh yeah.
Now, I hear nothing but terrible things about Dynasty Warriors games. Most repetitive combat, the story's the same exact thing in every game. I'm playing Dynasty Warriors 8, or I have Dynasty Warriors 8, and I love it.
I've enjoyed every Dynasty Warriors game I've ever played.
But see, that's the thing. Most reviews and everything I see are people just crapping on the game because it's terrible. And a lot of people don't like those games because they're the same exact game every year. But I love them. You trust my review? I mean,
yeah,
they're repetitive, but it's fun. Do you hate repetitiveness? I mean,
yeah, that's one of the things. That's where earlier when we talked about this, when my friend asked about the grouping, I had to be outright. I said I wouldn't buy the game if that's what you want. As of right now, wait a little bit. Your friend who was a hardcore arena person, they came up to you say, "Is this for me?" No. We were very logical and went, "No, it was not for you because of these reasons." But they're very logical reasons. But judging from some of these reviews, when people are like, "Oh, it just feels like this," that's why I say, like, the title of this episode is "Hold Thy Judgment." And the reason why I wanted to say that was I got so upset. I mean, I was telling Thais about this, and I was getting so upset. I was reading these negative reviews, and it made me sit there. And it's weird, but the way it worked was I'm sitting here reading this going, man, maybe ESO isn't that good of a game. Maybe it's just bad. And I'm sitting there at work reading these. I'm like, well, obviously. And then I got home, and then I logged in, and I played for hours and hours because I genuinely, and then when I'm playing, I'm like, I have no idea why in creation I even thought that way. You know what I mean? Like, I adore Elder Scrolls, don't get me wrong, but the game is generally fun for me. But I'm reading these reviews, and I'm getting kind of depressed, and with that depression thing, I'm starting to feel like, man, maybe this just isn't a very good game. But then I get home.
You got to be careful with that stuff, because I know exactly how you feel, dude. It's like, I'll read Reddit, and people will be like, this is the worst game ever created, what the F, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there going, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm fooling myself into playing a terrible game. And then I'll start playing it and I'll be like, I actually love this game. I don't know why. Like sometimes people who, this might be dumb or ignorant of me, but I purposely try to avoid negativity because all it does is upset me about Elder Scrolls. And it's good to be subjective and to know if there's problems. You have to be realistic about it. I don't want to join a guild that is super critical of the game. I also don't want to join a guild that is unabashedly in love with the game. Right. I like playing with you guys because, I mean, we're all, let's be realistic, we're fanboys, girls of this game, yet we know when there's a problem with it. It's all about being realistic and not getting caught up in the sweep of negativity.
Right.
I listen to like 5 Elder Scrolls podcasts because I want to be in that hype, positive aura. I want to enjoy it,
Right. And that's the point of these reviews, especially when it's like that. Like, I will say, I'm not a fanboy of ESO. I am a fanboy of the Elder Scrolls lore. I won't even say I'm a fanboy of Skyrim or Morrowind. I love the lore around the game. So naturally I want the games to go on, and I love the feeling of it. I like what they try to present. The first person that... It really is. It's the immersion of living in this living, breathing world. That's what I love. But I do. Like, automatically, you can't white knight it. They can do no wrong, because I will be the first to say when they said there's no rating in this game, I was like, I
freaked out.
Me too.
I was like, are you guys out of your effing mind? I was like, you're gonna fail instantly. And then I played the game.
I know, exactly.
It's like, well, I won't lie. I think it's a little scary to not have any rating until the first patch. I think that's a little chancy, but I'm hoping it comes out sooner than later.
Right. But that's just one of the things that I didn't automatically white knight and say just because it's an Elder Scrolls game I'm going to play it, because I'm like, To be honest, I said if I do buy it, I didn't plan on subbing more than a month. Like, because at the time, I would play it just because I love the Elder Scrolls franchise. But when they announced that, I'm like, I'll play till the story's done, and then we'll likely quit. But now that I've played the game and really dug into it, I adore it, and it's a fun game, even with the bugs, because there are bugs, ladies and gentlemen. There are bugs in the game. They are working on it.
There is not bugs in a newly launched MMO. You are crazy, sir.
It is. There are bugs. I will say that. There are things we would like to see. Thais, I know you want to see Dark Brotherhood Thieves Guild, right?
The one thing that I want to see more than anything else in this living, breathing world, I am really, really sad that there are no children NPCs.
It is very weird.
It's extremely weird. Even if you couldn't talk to them, couldn't harm them, even if they played no part in any storyline, they weren't in any village where there was a storyline occurring, at least in the main city or walking on the road, picking flowers, whatever you say, I feel like there is something lacking from this world because there are no children whatsoever. And that's the only complaint I have. Out of the entire game, the only complaint I have is that there are no children anywhere.
See, you know what? I feel like this particular game not requires, but it encourages a certain type of MMO thought process. You go to the SWTOR subreddit and people are like, they're adding housing to that game? Well, that's dumb. They should just make new raids. What the hell? Now think about Elder Scrolls games. You have housing. You have dungeons, obviously. You have everything. When it comes to an MMO, you have to have longer content such as raids. I hope to God they add housing at some point. I do. Because an Elder Scrolls MMO is more than just about raiding. It's about the entire experience. We said it earlier, the justice system patch that is rumored that we heard about a long time ago. That's something that people could say, well, they should just make a new raid instead of do that. But that's not all Elder Scrolls is. Elder Scrolls is the world. I want housing. I want a justice system more than I want the next tier of gear.
Right.
And a lot of people that play MMOs come from Warcraft and don't agree with that.
It is a different type of player as well, because you do have the single players coming into this, and there is a lot that we want to see. But again, we'll just cut the discussion topic here. The main thing is, even with what you heard from us, you may not agree with us, because we do have our personal opinions and stuff of that. Play the game for yourself. Don't get wrapped up in negativity or positively, because here's a perfect example. SWTOR had a huge hype train, and there were white knighting up and crazy. Now I hear it's a lot better now than it launched. I've never played it, but there was such a huge positivity about the game that it could do no wrong until it launched. But there's also a point where negativity makes you it's depressing. It's like, well, maybe I don't really want to play this game. Give it a try. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. I mean, but you can't trust a review, because even here, I can't stand Legend of Zelda, much to the detriment of our family marriage. Yeah. But I will say this, GameStop gave that game a perfect 10 out of 10, the Ocarina of Time. I can't get into it. Is it a good game? I'm sure it is. A lot of people say it is.
He's never even tried it. He's never tried it.
I've tried a couple hours and I couldn't get into it. But that's neither here nor there. We were not getting into a Zelda fight here. But my
divorce.
my feelings about the game were just because I didn't like it. I'm obviously wrong, because it is a hit across the world. It's still talked about now, however many years it's been out. Well, not Ocarina of Time. Anyway, but because my opinions aren't good on it, if I were to write a review, it would be negative. But a lot of people like it. You gotta play and see if you like it. That's where the important thing comes in. And I gotta get off this topic very quickly, because Thais is hyperventilating over here because I said something bad about Zelda. Moving on to the next topic, it is our Tales of Tamriel. Breathe, baby. Just breathe. I love you. Okay. Crabby. Crabby loves you too. Stop, don't kill me.
No, I'm not talking to her. I'm talking to you.
Oh,
whatever.
Hey, I'm popular. All right, Tales time. Crabby, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in Tamriel this week? And I know it's been a lot because you've been in there with me a lot.
I mean, so last week I was actually going to talk about my vampire adventures, but I wasn't able to make the show last week. Okay, I'll just do that. So, I was level 22, and I decided, I really want to get bit by a vampire and see what happens. So I Googled it. I know I ruined it for myself, but I Googled it anyway. Figured out you have to go to the rift. All right, spoilers. You have to go to the rift and get bitten by a rare spawn to contract vampirism. The rift is level 40 to 42 mobs, and I'm level 23. So I'm running out there. I have zone chat turned on. People are like, "Oh, we're selling bites for 10K," and I had like 50K on me. So I could have bought it, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna try to do this myself because I want to do it myself. So I'm running around. Excuse me, 1 second. So I'm running around, and there's 3 or 4 different spawn points that I'm running between each. And these rare spawns only spawn at night on a certain moon phase. And I got so lucky that I'm running around. I go AFK for like 5 minutes at this one spawn point. I come back and I'm dead. And I'm like, oh man, the Saber Cat must have walked by and it must have got destroyed. I res and I look at my character sheet and I click on my debuffs and I go, vampirism. Just for the hell of it, I ran by that spot again, and there was actually the rare spawn there, and people were running into it, getting killed to contract the disease, and then killing the vampire, the rare spawn, so other people couldn't get it, which was kind of crappy, but whatever. So I get vampirism, and I'm super excited. I'm like, oh man, I love being a vampire in Elder Scrolls games. They're so cool. Because they're not Twilight vampires. Vampires in Elder Scrolls games are super brutal.
Sparkly.
So, yes, they're super sparkly, yeah. So, I walk back to Riften after getting vampirism, and there's this guy outside leaning against a tree, and I'm like, well, I can't do any of these quests. They're all high level, but I decided to talk to this guy anyway because he looked kind of weird. And I talked to the guy, and he's like, "Oh, you look kind of sickly, my friend. How you doing there?" And I'm like, "Oh, what?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, you got vampirism, don't you? Well, why don't you go either get yourself cured or go talk to our blood matron?" Long story short, I have to go into this awesome crypt with the original vampire in all of Nirn. And the quest requires me to kill level 42s, and I'm level 23. I got destroyed. So, needless to say, I had to wait till level 36, I think I was, to go in there and actually finish it. The vampire quest line was really awesome. I love everything about it. There's, 4 different stages. Every stage you look different. You might look like in the 4th stage, your face is all messed up. You got veins. Your eyes are blue and red.
He looks pretty grotesque.
Yeah, you look very Cold Harbor-ish. It's really awesome. Getting to rank 10 vampire is really easy. Pretty much as you're leveling up, your vampire levels up. I hear for werewolf it's a lot harder to level up, but vampire it's really easy. Yeah, so getting vampire, honestly, if you're around level 20, ooh, sorry about that. That was my phone.
Was that a goat?
No, that was the Peter Griffin laugh. My recommendation: anybody who wants to be a vampire, go to the Rift, Google the rare spawns. You're not going to spoil anything for yourself, and run at the rare spawns. See if you're at the right moon phase, and just run into them. Die. You'll get vampirism. As long as you get the disease, you can get the quest, and you can do the quest at a later time. It's beautiful.
Huh.
Last note: fire sucks. I get one shot by things that shouldn't one shot me. That's all I'll say. But the other benefits are amazing. So that was my little vampire story.
So wait a minute. To put off Crabby's advances for trying to bite me, all I have to do is run around with a fire spell. I like my chances there. That's what I'll be doing from now on.
Fire is brutal to vampires, very brutal.
Silver bolts works too. Knocks them down for like 4 seconds. It's great. Before we move on to Thais and my tale, you want to tell us a little bit about your build? Like, what are you currently doing? Like, what are you playing with right now?
Okay, so I literally chose my character um based on being a vampire. I didn't want to be I didn't so when I made my character, I went, okay, let's look at the vampire passives, because when you unlock vampire or werewolf, you get a new skill tree. I'm looking at the vampire passives, and they are 100% built for being a sneaky character, being like a rogue type character, or a caster. You do not want to be a tank and be a vampire. That is bad. You will get destroyed. Um, I don't use any of the active abilities for vampire. The passives benefit me greatly. Um, One of the passives increases my magic and stamina regeneration by 10%. I can stealth at regular speed at nighttime or in dungeons, which is really awesome. Um, at 30% health, I take 50% less damage, which is fantastic. But yeah, so my basic build is I have every single vampire passive. I use primarily sorcerer abilities. I use crystal fragments, mage's fury, and elemental ring. Which elemental ring is the one destructive staff ability I use. It's an amazing AoE. It's fantastic. And after my 4 and 5 abilities is summon Twilight Matriarch and Mage Light for the crit. So I'm a full on sorcerer. I use destruction staff, so I'm a full on sorcerer, mage type person. It's really fun. It's really squishy. I have like no defense. I have a couple of pieces of plate, but it is not helping me as much as I was hoping it would help. So I'm feeling super squishy with anything really. Even mobs my level are super squishy.
So where is it that you got that plate from exactly?
I don't know. Some noob made it for me. Totally. Yeah, so Aggelos made me my level 48, 46, 46 plate, shoulders, and belt. But yeah. Yeah, no, it's fun. I like the whole vampire play style. It's really fun. If I was to make a melee character, I'd probably go werewolf because that looks a lot better for melee.
I've heard that. I've heard that across the board. Their passives and stuff are very melee-ish oriented, and from what I hear, if you're willing to drop the ultimate slot, you get some pretty neat tanking slash adorable melee abilities. From
I was in a group with a werewolf Nightblade earlier, and when he popped werewolf, he was annihilating boss monsters in this public dungeon. It was crazy. I was like, oh my, he was just destroying it. It was out of control.
Nice.
So yeah, werewolf itself seems really cool.
I'm gonna try werewolf on my I think my Imperial, because even when I made him, there was a body marking that looks like he has a werewolf bite on his shoulder, so I made him have that.
I think there's a vampire bite on
There
the neck.
is.
Yeah.
There is. Cool.
I'm not going to be either or because neither of them interest me. Because I like my characters to be pretty, and after you have vampirism, that's
Well,
it.
hey, you could keep feeding on people and you could stay at stage 1. And you'd
Oh.
only look marginally different. So yeah, so like Vampires in 4 stages. Stage 1 lasts for a half an hour. If you want to stay at stage 1, every half an hour you have to sneak up to an enemy and just bite them. That's it. And you stay at stage 1. The only benefit to the higher stages is the vampire abilities cost less to cast. So,
Well, it's just like Skyrim with their Dawn Guard. That as you started to get more hungry, your abilities got more powerful.
yeah,
But then
the more
everyone,
hungry- yeah.
you were insanely powerful. Like your drains would just like kill everybody, but you look like a vampire and everyone would hunt you down. When
Yeah.
you look like a human, it was easy to walk around and do stuff, but you felt like you were attacking with a pillow. It was pretty bad. All right. Let's move on to our tales. Thais, why don't you tell us a little bit about your character? Have you changed your build? Have you got any new abilities that you wanted to play with since last week? Anything like that? Anything?
The only thing I can think of is that I need to redo my attributes. That's it. Other than that, I'm trying to think here. No. I mean, I unlocked another healing ability. That's about it. I know that I'm still, the total sorcerer.
Do you guys have a certain pattern for attributes? Because you know what I do? I do 2 health. I'm sorry. I do 2 magicka, 1 health. 2 magicka, 1 health. I go back and forth like that. Do you guys have any particular pattern for your abilities?
I
Attributes?
was going 5 into magicka and 1 into health until I think I got a piece of bad advice that I listened to. And someone said in one of my other guilds that even if you're a magicka user, you still need points in stamina. So now I have points in stamina, and I feel like my damage is just nothing.
I don't know. The only reason I could see myself needing points in stamina is for dodging more.
Well, what they were saying was that stamina, it helps increase damage you do when you use your weapon. Now,
Yeah.
even though you're casting spells, that damage from your weapon still gets put into how much damage you do with your spells. But I haven't noticed it
Well,
helping at all.
it matters. Like if you're using all destruction staff abilities, I don't know. See, I was under the impression that stamina only improved weapon damage. I didn't think weapon damage improved spell damage.
Well, apparently that's what was said, and I went, oh, okay, I'll try it. But then I looked up guides on allocating attribute points for sorcerers, and not one mage is putting them in stamina. So I got a bad piece of advice.
You're gonna do more damage spamming one ability than you are, using not casting as many because you still have to wait for your magicka to come back.
Well, if I put all those points in magicka, I'll have more magicka and I'll be doing more damage.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to take those points out of stamina and put them into magic because obviously this stamina thing is not working as I thought it would be.
I'm currently doing some. I was originally trying to use my my Templar build, if you will, is what I call them from Skyrim. Though the official guide calls him a spell sword. I made adjustments. I didn't use destruction magic. I used one-handed weapons and magic and resto magic in my other hand. But their suggestion was 4 health, 4 stamina, 2 magicka. That's what I've been doing. So every 10 levels, you'll essentially have 4, 4, 2. That actually did not work very well for me because I found that, at least at first, right now I'm pretty beastly with my two-handed. I feel like I really rip through things now. But as a Templar, your Adric Spear abilities and your casted abilities from your class lines do a lot of damage. You don't want to negate them because they augment your damage if you're mostly melee. But you need magicka, and I'm very magicka dependent, so I respect, and now I'm doing something more of 4 stam, 4 magicka, 2 health is what I've been going for every 10 levels. That's how I've been rolling so far.
Yeah, I feel like playing a melee character is very odd because a lot of their abilities require magicka to cast.
Yeah, they do. Especially as a Templar, you need loads of magicka, because we're very magicka dependent. But you need stamina, because stamina does increase weapon damage for melee weapons, and you also need it for feat weapons. So you're essentially double dipping. As a caster, you need magicka because your spells from your staff use magicka as well as as a sorcerer. So do your abilities, class abilities. Melee characters are a little different because you need magicka for your class abilities, but you need stamina for your feats, such as, momentum and things of that nature. So you need to double it up. It is kind of crazy in that, so you kind of have to spread out. I can't go all magicka or I won't be able to do any melee attacks, or very few. Vice versa, I can't do a lot of melee attacks, or I'll have no magicka for anything else. So it is an interesting balance. And I actually do have one of every ability. I have a Dawn's Wrath, an Adric Spear, and a Resto on my bar, so I can kind of do a little bit of everything. And I've been mixing it with some two-handed weaponry. Alright, so that's our current character builds. I think the newest ability that I've gotten so far is an Adric Spear ability that I absolutely adore. I forget what its actual name... Spear Shards, that's what it's called. It is a ground-targeted AoE ability that is just amazing. And it has a neat synergy, too, that's kind of useful for melee players. It gives you a base amount of stamina back as well as stamina regeneration. It is really cool. I've been playing with that, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have that on my bar at all times going forward. But there we go. All right, let's talk a little bit about our playtime this week. And we had a good bit of playtime, I think. We didn't get as far as a lot of playtime, but not a lot as advancing, because where we left off last week was we were finishing up the last of Deshaan, and then we'd be moving on to Shadowfen. So the note I have here is saving Selphora, finding a spirit who asks you to save a man and a woman and two women. Do you remember that quest? It was Selphora and the Malborn had come in and had launched an assault against Selphora. For whatever reason, they were looking for the Hammer of Veloth, which was called Judgement. And I guess these guys had knowledge of where it was held. And it was a really sad story because everyone is barricaded inside the inn. And you're trying to save these two people. Like, there's this magic fire burning away at the town. And as soon as you walk in, a ghost appears to you and says, you need to help these people. And it's weird because he's the only ghost who is friendly. Everyone else is not. What was it that we found out about these people he wanted us to save, FaZe?
By the end of the quest, this guy had been helping you save these three people in particular. And at the end of the quest, you find out that this guy is actually this man and these two women. He is the leader of the town, and that these people were his family. His son, his daughter, and his wife. And the way he speaks, he's like really, really emotional in saying that, he doesn't know why he had to help, but something was telling him that he couldn't harm anybody. He had some other purpose in being a spirit, and it was to save his family and this town from certain doom. And it was just, as I frequently say to Ag, it was just really sad that his dying wish was to make sure that his family was safe. And it was an enjoyable quest.
As I pointed out to FaZe, if anyone's played the Elder Scrolls series, they know one universal truth about Tamriel. There is no happy. There is either sad and less sad. That's how almost everything ends. Hardly anything ends with the fairy tale ending. It's sad and less sad. It's the people in the village are like getting ripped apart by a plague, and they're like, could be worse. We could be that village down there. They're like dead. So it is, no matter what, any town you go to, it's, yeah, we're pretty bad, but at least we're not as bad as those guys. So that is Tamriel as a whole, and it actually kind of fits. Again, this was of course retconned in. When the game was originally announced, Elder Scrolls 1, they called it Arena. The whole premise of the game was so that it would be a arena combat simulator. That's what the whole thing was. You're supposed to tour around and win tournaments, and it all ended in the Imperial City where you beat. That was the whole game. It wasn't even an RPG game at the start. As the development went on, they changed the game to make it more RPG, and they eventually ditched the arena combat system and made it a full-fledged RPG. But they kept the name, and at the time, I'm sure they just did it because, for real-life reasons, there was no lore behind it, and they built upon it. But they had already printed up all the game box art, all the stuff with the term arena in it. So they retconned the name, saying that the real place is called Tamriel, but everyone refers to it as Arena because of its brutal nature. So the land is known as Arena to the common people. Of course, it was only because they'd already spent all this money calling the game Arena, and during development they changed it from a combat simulation game to an RPG. So I thought, sorry that was a rabbit trail, but I thought that was kind of neat how the game original name kind of tied in with how brutal the world really is. Thais is looking at me like I'm crazy over here with my rabbit trail, but there was a point to it. Anyway, we actually had been tracking down Magistrix Vox, and the reason why she burned down the entire town, we found out, was she had come to them requesting aid to help out spread the Llodoes plague, and they outright refused, and in retribution, she burned the entire town. So after we rescue them, put the spirits to rest, we decide we're going to start venturing south, and we found a village called the Silent Mire. And they seems pretty happy, so I'm going to let her talk about the Silent Mire and what we did there.
I have no idea what we did there. I don't remember. All I know is that I remember that it was a little village of Argonians that all they wanted to do was live peacefully. And it was just, again, it was sad because this group of Argonians is like, we just want to live in peace and we don't fight and we just love everything. But there's people ransacking our town and we have no skills as fighters. Can you please just, go take care of that for me? And of course, right away, I'm like, okay, I'll go handle that, don't worry. As I just run into the town, staff ablazing. And the main guy that gives us the quest, I think he wanted us to find his mate. And I remember turning to Ag and going, I love that word, mate, because it's so permanent. And then I said to Ag, you're my mate, the Argonians. I love Argonians. But that's all that I remember, is that it was a town full of Argonians who wanted nothing but to live peacefully, but were being raided by pirates. So you can tell the rest of that.
Well, really, that was all of it. They were being raided by pirates.
Not just any pirates. They were Khajiit pirates. So they were dirty kitties attacking my awesome Argonians, and I was not happy.
Well, can you really blame them? I mean, let's face it. Their entire country of Elsewhere is nothing more than a giant litter box. I wouldn't want to live in that either.
Speaking of Argonians, have you guys seen a stage 4 Argonian vampire?
No.
No.
Their scales on their face are completely white, and their eyes look like albinos. It's incredibly weird.
All that reminds me
try
of
to find a picture of one
is there's this one Argonian in Shadowfen, Stormhold. I'm skipping ahead here. He's just a random NPC. He's just not even a quest guy. All his line is, the only thing I really fear is scale rot. So you're saying he has white scales? I'm sitting there thinking
It looks super. He looks sick.
he's got
like-
scale rot. Is that what scale rot looks like on an Argonian? All right. Well, the next part, I have a mark here, and it's kind of neat. This one, wasn't really tied to a quest. Well, it was, but we thought it was really neat. But we had found an amulet that it said marked with an R for Risa, and it asked to be delivered to the woman's mother because she was killed, and there wasn't really a whole lot to it, other than when we found the mother in the camp, she was all a wreck because she hadn't heard from her daughter in weeks. So when you deliver the amulet, it's sad, but she's like, "Thank you for bringing me the amulet, because now I can finally grieve for my daughter, knowing what really happened." And she was really upset because even in the daughter's journal, the mother didn't want her to leave, but she left. They had a big fight afterwards. So she's like, while I'm grieving, it's going to haunt me forever. The last thing I ever did was fight with my daughter before she left. And that's where she died. Again, there's sad and less sad in this game.
But after you hand her the amulet and you complete the quest, if you stand there, see, this is one of the reasons why I love you guys so. If you stand there for a moment, a ghost appears. And as the mother is standing there clutching the amulet, her daughter's ghost appears behind her and says, "Mother, I'm not angry with you, and I don't want you to grieve over my death. And the last thing that I have to tell you is that I love you dearly." And it doesn't look like the mother hears the ghost of her daughter, but you're able to hear her. And it's just such a touching scene, and it's just incredibly heartbreaking. Just one of those little things that they added in that if you pay attention, you see and you can hear, and just, oh, I was so sad.
Yeah, part of the quest actually is after we do that, we find out that the fort that she is in has been having some very weird things go on. The general of the fort has been ever more erratic and has been issuing orders and doing things that just seem out of place. Like, he's sentencing people to death for things that would normally, if their outfit was out of place, instead of getting, disciplined in one way, they were being sentenced to death. And weird things were really going on. He accuses his personal guard of being a spy and wants to have her arrested and executed. And she's like, "I don't understand. I've been his personal guard for the past 14 years. I've been with him every single day for 14 years. There is no spy here." And she asks you to investigate. And part of the thing is going around and asking different people what they had found and what was so different, what had caused the general to snap. And when you go in, you finally bribe your way in, or in our case, I think we use the Fighters Guild Intimidate to intimidate the guard over his room to let us through. And the thing we notice is that as we go in, all of the general's stuff have been there, but haven't been touched for a long time. Like, his suit jackets and stuff have dust on them, so they haven't been touched in a very, very long time. And as we go through, we find out that it is indeed another Mulborn plot. These guys are everywhere. They had killed the general and had replaced his body with that of a Dremora had taken over his body, and it was actually a Dremora causing all the issues within the keep. So he had to slay and kill the Dremora. Here's where the game gets dark for me, because I tend to play a very holy warrior type character, and we come across one of the Mulborn spies, and we catch him down in the tunnels, and we make him tell us what is going on, and he begs us not to kill him, to let him go. And we have, of course, this is one of those times where you have one of two different options, whether to say, just get out of here, But this is the first time I think I looked at Thais and I said, no, not this time. And that's exactly what the answer was. No, not this time. When you select it, your guy just pulls out a knife and just stabs the guy right through the chest. He falls over dead. I felt terrible. As I was going on, I was like, I'm really feeling remorse for killing that guy, for a guy who begged to be let go.
The next day, we start playing again, and he turns to me and goes, "Do you feel bad at all for killing that guy yesterday?" And I turn to him and I say, I actually do. That's the first person we have ever killed in this game with one of those choices.
One of the choices where it was, kill him or don't. Killing a surrendering person. We've had people die from us trying to do good, but this is the first time I think I've ever chose to willingly kill somebody. And I tell you what, this game really drags you in because I felt awful. It was terrible. But yeah, even the day after, I still felt bad. So we go on and we start our assault on all the Daedra and the Maulborn, still standing with Vox, because by this point in time we've stopped the Llodoes plague in Deshaan and are fighting and pushing back against Vox and her minions, the Daedra who she summoned to augment her ranks. We are told to go and get, the blessing from Saint Veloth at the shrine of Saint Veloth. We have to go clear it out. Now, this is something I want to do because one of our listeners wanted us to kind of do this, and this is something I actually wanted to do. So throughout going forward, I'm going to try to, when I find something lore related, try to drop some lore knowledge for people to dig into the deeper mysteries of the play. And I have in the notes drop some lore on the peeps, because that's how I write apparently, about the Shrine of Veloth and who Veloth was for people who don't actually know. They might have heard the name spoken a little bit in ESO. He's not a huge moving force anymore, and he's not really part of the culture as much as he was at one point in time. But Veloth, are known as Saint Veloth the Pilgrim, is the patron saint of outcast and the spiritual seekers. In the late to middle Merithic era, he was a prophet and mystic who believed the Aldmer culture. Aldmer were all the elves, not Altmer. There's a difference. The Aldmer were all the elves. They were the progenitor of the elven races. The Aldmer culture in Somerset Isle had become decadent. He therefore led the Chimer, which you might have heard that term come up, the ancestors of the modern-day Dunmer, into the promised land of Morrowind. Saint Veloth also taught the difference between the good and the bad Daedra, and won the aid of the good Daedra for his people while teaching how to carefully negotiate with the bad Daedra. Now, before this time, the Aldmer culture was very focused on ancestor worship. They believed that they were direct descendants of the Et Ada, the original spirits, and that they had simply lost their divinity. So when their ancestors died, they were, of course, venerated. Veloth was the first to kind of show the Dunmer, or Chimer at the time before the change, that their ancestors were not worthy of worship. In fact, there were greater powers out there. The Velothi Mountains were named after him, and as the Velothi Towers of Morrowind. The Golden Age of Chimeri history is known as a period of high Velothi culture. The influence of antiquity is keenly felt, as Velothi is still an accurate descriptor of the Dunmer people, and is used in connection with references to their oldest cultural traditions. In addition, many magical items with healing enchantments bear his name, but the most well-known artifact is the powerful Veloth's Judgement Warhammer, long sought by the Tribunal Temple. So that's a little bit of lore on who Veloth really was, and I'm going to try to do that from now on when we do our stories.
I love Dunmer culture so much. I just love it. Like, I love the whole Daedra influence on Dunmer culture. It's just, it's awesome. Because no other race is really like that.
They're the only elves that I enjoy. I just something about the Dunmer. I like
I'm
the Dunmer.
surprised you like them because they enslaved Argonians for a few thousand years.
That is true. That is true. And there are a lot of Dunmer that I don't like, especially that one clan of Dark Elves.
House Dress.
Yes, House Stress. I cannot stand them. Whenever we have to do anything for them, I just want to slaughter them all. But there's a lot of Dark Elves who are repentant in that they held Argonians for slaves. So I'm okay with that. I'm getting over that burning hatred for Dunmer slavers.
Yeah, so I think they have an interesting culture, because really it is true, because Daedra worship in the whole of the Empire is, at this point in time, I don't think it's illegal, but it's very frowned upon, and it's very niche with cults. There's cults that worship, but as a people, there's no real people other than the Dunmer that openly worship Daedra. It's always subsects of people. Moving on to the next part, we finally did finish and defeat Magistrix Vox. We're not going to go into a lot because it is an awesome storyline ending, but one note we did have was one of the things we had to do is we had to see her visions of the past, find out who Vox really was. And it was really creepy because we're in her memories, and in one point in time, she is doing a big speech about how she's going to overthrow the tribunal and everything like that. But at the end of the thing, she stops and looks at you and goes, "Thinks you can hide from me, intruder? I see you." Just like that. And it is so creepy because this is supposed to be her memories where she's bowing in the altar, and she stops and she turns her head, and it's like a horror movie Chucky moment kind of thing. She turns her head and she's like, "I see you." And I'm like, oh, it is so creepy because at the end they're like, wow, she's become so powerful. She actually detected you in her memories and kind of projected her real self into the memory line, because we were seeing past events, but she talked to us while inside her memories. It was so creepy. I love it. And the end of the Deshaan storyline is really, really cool.
That Zone's overarching storyline is one of my favorite in the game for Zone stories so far.
I agree.
The whole plague stuff, I love.
I do. But I don't know. Like, I really do like that one. I think it has beaten out Stonefalls now that we've done it. But I gotta tell you, right now, in Shadowfen, we'll get into it a little bit, the beginning of the storyline is creepy. I love it. I love it so much. So we did decide to head into Shadowfen and start our adventures in Shadowfen. But before we did this, we did have a special PvP night where we actually went into Cyrodiil. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because this is pretty fun. We are on the Hopespire campaign, and it is a very volatile campaign. There's no real one side that dominates all the time. It fluctuates a lot. When we had joined the campaign, we had owned everything. Absolutely everything. Like, they had nothing. Not a single tower, not a single outpost, nothing. And it stayed that way for like 2 days or something like that. And then it starts fluctuating, where then we lost everything. The Aldmari came in and took everything. Then the Daggerfall came in and took everything. But I don't even feel like it's like underpowered, or like people are just going in and taking things when no one's on, because we've hit a lot of resistance. But it feels like there's certain guilds in each group. Like, I've seen certain names, especially in the Ebonheart Pact, that when they're playing, we just take everything. But when they're not playing, we lose everything. It's kind of interesting. Like, these big guilds that are part of this campaign are really moving things along. But we did have we had 2 or 3 people from the guild join us that night. We actually had a lot of fun. We started with 0 keeps. And I think, Thais, this was your first venture into Cyrodiil to do PvP, correct?
Yes, it was. It was.
How'd you like it?
I enjoyed it a lot. It was interesting because it's that action combat, and it felt different than Guild Wars 2. And I did find that Sky Shard for us.
She did.
So that was awesome. But being able to control all the different trebuchets and watching the walls actually break down like little by little, I liked it. I really did. I had a good time, and I was worried I wasn't going to enjoy it. But once we actually started taking keeps and we started, getting our butts kicked, it was a lot of fun.
It was. But yeah, we definitely had a lot of fun with the PvP, and we were in there for 3 or 4 hours and went from having 0 keeps to having 4 or 5. We took 4 or 5 before we logged off, and by the next morning we had almost all the map. We had reclaimed 2 of our scrolls and had taken all but the nearest keeps to Daggerfall and Aldmari, so that was really cool. So yeah, that was really, really cool. Now, we did start our adventures in Shadowfen, and I think we're going to be a little brief here. But the overarching story of Shadowfen is really neat. There are murders going on, and no one is willing to help. Because the problem with Shadowfen, and particularly Stormhold, is you have 3 cultures. All the pack is here in one way or the other. You have, what are they called? Vice Cannons, which are the leaders. There's a Nord one, a Dark Elf, and an Argonian. And naturally, the Argonians and the Dark Elves are at each other's throats, like normal. It's true, they are. And the problem is, a lot of Dark Elves are being slain, and they're blaming it on a group known as the Shadow Scales. Shadow Scales, of course, are related to the Dark Brotherhood. They're a group of all Argonian assassins who are born under the sign of the Serpent. Of course, this is not the case, and it does delve in pretty deep. I'm not going to go into the storyline too much because we're still kind of exploring it a little bit. But one of the neat things, I did bring out some funny moments. And we found a Nord and his son going after Argonian relics. But he called his son worthless. All right, this is the funny part. He calls his son worthless, and that he takes after his whoring mother. I had to write that down because he's like, yeah, I sent my son out to do it, but he's worthless. Takes after his whoring mother. I'm like, whoa. And another one, actually, that I did is I talked to one of the Nord Vice Cannons. And when you ask him why the Dominion is invading Shadowfen, he replies, well, why wouldn't the Aldmari Dominion invade it? Why else? Those pristine towers of theirs must get boring. Maybe a brawl in the mud beats chasing their cousins around for kisses. I fell off my chair laughing at that one. So apparently the Aldmari Dominion, according to this Nord, are a bunch of incestuous, boring people. And it cracked me up. It was hilarious. The one last notable thing that we did note that I thought was very cool is we stumbled upon the last remaining village of Kathringi tribal people in the depths of Black Marsh.
I have one question. Did you finish this storyline with them?
I did.
Did you choose? I'm not going to spoil anything, but did you choose the warriors or the other guy?
We chose. We threw the Soul Shroud Array in the fire to destroy it. Yeah, we did.
Whatever.
Yes, we did. But it's kind of neat for the people who don't know. The Kathringi they're silver-skinned humans. When we first saw them, they looked a little different because we were like, I think it's a Dunmer because they look like a Dunmer. But something just wasn't right about the person because they had a human feature, and I couldn't tell at the time they had a hood on and everything like that. But when you ask about their Kathringi, these people were wiped out in the Second Era by the Nahitan flu. It's rumored that some of them escaped on ship. Other people say like they were found by Khajiit pirates and they were all killed. But at the point of ESO, it's generally believed that all the Catharingi that were the native people of Black Marsh are indeed extinct, but we did stumble upon the last remaining village. And there is a unique storyline as to why they survived the Khajiit flu. So I do encourage people to go out and listen to that story because it is very, very neat. And as of right now, we are on the trail of the Skin Stealers, a group of Aldmari Dominion who are able to kill people and steal their skins. And that's where we left off. And it's a creepy storyline. It's really neat. So, that ends our tales for this week. Moving on to the dramatic reading, it is Thais' favorite time. This week, in honor of the Elder Scrolls Online, we are continuing to host our 4-part series by reading the biographies of the leaders of the faction war. Jarun the Scald King, Queen Aerin, High King Emmerich, and finally the Thorn family, who currently control the Imperial City and the Ruby Throne. This week, in continuing the 4-part series, we are on part 3, which will be about High King Emmerich of the Daggerfall Covenant. The book is called Travails and Triumphs of a Monarch, a self-congratulatory autobiography of Emmerich, High King of Wayrest. By the way, I got that tag off of Imperial Library. That is not my writing on that. So, it is a very long book, but Thais, take it away.
The author is King Emmerich. Chapter 3, At the Gates of Daggerfall. For a dozen years after the Battle of Grandin Tor, the kingdoms of High Rock were at peace, and the merchant ships of Wayrest, Daggerfall, and Sentinel traded near and far to all the ports of Tamriel. In my father's hall of business in Wayrest, I learned of the tracking of shipments, the balancing of accounts, and the fluctuation of currencies. But Periac of the Cumberland knew the nature of the world, and he was not content to have his son learn only of the ways of peace and trade. Every morning I sparred with the Cumberland Master of Arms, and every afternoon, the weather permitted, I rode a warhorse, exercising with the Manavia Heavy Dragoons. It wasn't just practice. For 2 months every summer, I traveled as lieutenant of the mounted escort of the Evermore Caravan, and a half-dozen times we fought off hill bandits, goblin raiders, and Reachman warbands. I was fortunate to have spent so much time with my hilt in my hand, for in the Second Era of 541, when I was but 20, Durkorak the Black Drake spread his wings in the Reach and mustered his feral tribesmen to war. Erupting from their mountain lairs like ants from a kicked anthill, the Reachmen howled down into Bankorai, burning and looting. After only 3 days' siege, Evermore fell to this horde. The land was pillaged and its people massacred. Holland's Stand held out longer, but eventually it was also overrun by the heathen swarm. Within days, they were across the Bajul Say and bearing down upon Wayrest. Then all were grateful that King Gardner had built new walls and battlements around Wayrest, for the town had grown, so that it had burst the bounds of the old walls. Throngs of people swarmed in from the countryside, and soon it seemed that all Manavia, Golvadon, and Alcaire were within the city walls. But when the Reachman's storm burst upon Wayrest, the crowded conditions seemed a small price to pay for protection from the fury of those Daedra-loving heathens. Thus began the epic siege of Wayrest, when for 57 days and nights the Bretons of Stormhaven manned the walls and repulsed the savage assaults of our terrible opponents. The Reachmen, lacking siege engines, were unable to breach our new walls and take the city by storm, and lacking ships they were unable to blockade our harbor and reduce the city by starvation. Stalemate. Was Durakok's invasion of High Rock at an end? Indeed, no. Your Reachman warrior, though fearless and fierce, is not as a rule very patient. The Black Drake left enough troops in the revetments around our walls to keep us bottled up inside, and simply marched off west into Glenumbra. Taken by surprise, the newly independent city-state of Camlorn fell and was sacked. And then, Dorkarok turned his eyes south toward Daggerfall. Fortunately, King Gardner heeded my advice to use our merchant ships as transports for the heavy dragoons. That was how I found myself at the head of the lances of Wayrest's finest, as we charged into the rear of the Reachmen, massed before Daggerfall's city gates. All Bretons know how the Black Drake's warriors were caught completely by surprise, how I smote Dorkarok and tore down his unholy banner. They know of the sortie of the Knights of Daggerfall, in which King Bergamot finished the work we'd begun, scattering the broken army of the heathens like autumn leaves before a gale. Only one fortnight after that I watched, head bowed, as the kings of Daggerfall, Camlorn, Shornhelm, Evermore, and Wayrest signed the first Daggerfall Covenant. Chapter 6. Rancer's War, Wayrest Besieged. Ever since my ascension to the throne of Wayrest, in that momentous year of Second Era 563, the question of who should become my queen consort was ever on my, and my advisors' minds. King Rancer of Shornhelm had a goodly daughter, Princess Raelle, and her hand was offered to me by my brother of Shornhelm both early and often. Indeed, my mind was almost made up to accept the Princess of Shornhelm when, on a visit to Sentinel, my eyes first beheld the Princess Mireia, daughter of King Vaharajad. From that moment I swore that Wayrest would have no queen but Mireia. Of course, there was another unexpected benefit. As her dowry, she brought a trade agreement between our two states that resulted in great prosperity for all. King Rancer, alas, was wroth that I had not accepted the hand of his daughter, and he withdrew his ambassador from the court of Wayrest. Although Rancer was invited to my wedding to Mireia in the spring of 566, like the other kings of the Covenant, he stayed, seething, in Shornhelm. I should perhaps have paid more attention to Rancer's color, but I was so taken with my new bride and trade issues around the Iliac Bay that mountainous Shornhelm seemed distant and irrelevant. That mistake almost cost me my throne. For over a year, Rancer had been quietly mustering his troops and emptying his treasury to hire mercenaries. In last seed of Second Era 566, he led his army out of Shornhelm in a lightning strike to the south. Rancer had marched across Alcaire and Manavia almost before we were aware of his approach. The Shornhelm advance guard reached the gates of Wayrest, while the local militias we had quickly mustered were still filing through them. This was a moment when history trembled upon a cusp. If the attacking Oldgate Lancers scattered our militia and took the gate, Wayrest could fall to her attackers within the hour. Fortunately, I was personally present at the gate, along with my Cumberland guard. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, I had my bannermen sound the charge. I led the gate guards and my household troops out against the Oldgate Lancers. My men wore full armor, and I, though unarmored, bore at my side the mighty Orichalc scalpel, an enchanted broadsword of many virtues. The scalpel, drawn for the first time in anger, flashed and hummed like a blade in a sawmill as we hurled ourselves upon the Lancers. Our enemies, who suddenly found themselves opposed by armored veterans rather than panicky irregulars, were further confounded by the sudden onset of a thunderstorm. Lashed by hail, their horses terrified by lightning, faced with the Orichalc scalpel scything through their necks and limbs, the vaunted Aldgate Lancers hesitated, then broke and ran, pell-mell, from the gate. By the time Rancer's main forces arrived on the scene, our troops were all within the walls, the gates were shut up tight, but the King of Shornhelm was undeterred. The city of Wayrest found itself once more under siege, and Rancer, with more craft and foresight than the Reachman Dorkarok, had come with siege engines in his train. Chapter 10. The Summons of Destiny. With the siege of Wayrest lifted, and Rancer defeated, my story comes to its end. You have read now of my carefree youth in Cumberland House, how my father, Lord Pirek, saw to my training in the crafts of trade, war, and of state, of my first great victory over Dorkarak at the gates of Daggerfall, and of the vast orichalcum load our family struck in the Cumberland mine. You have heard of the tragic coming of the Cahetan flu, how it took my father and the entire royal family of Wayrest, leaving our kingdom leaderless in a time of chaos. You now know with what reluctance I was persuaded to assume the throne of Wayrest. You know of the halo of gold that outlined the sun on the day of my coronation. That omen of approval by the divines dispelled all my doubts and converted even my most envious rivals into heartfelt allies. You have now learned of the true history of Rancer's War, and how it led to the second or greater Daggerfall Covenant, embracing the Red Guards of Hammerfell, as well as the Orcs of Orsinium, who came to our aid in our honor of direst need. The free peoples of northwest Tamriel have vowed to stand together against all threats, be they from within or without. We were soon tested, and Second Era 579, the Emperor Varen, with whom I was negotiating a treaty, disappeared from the imperial city, and Cyrodiil once again fell under the pale of the Daedric Cabal. In Varen's unexplained absence, the Empress Clivia assumed the Ruby Throne. Since then, the heart of the Empire has fallen into madness, murder, and decay. It is fortunate for our peoples, indeed for all the peoples of Tamriel, that the true flame of the Empire of Man still burns in the Daggerfall Covenant. These are terrible times, but our destiny lies before us as straight and true as the Remnant roads. We must march on Cyrodiil, overthrow the false Empress and all her brood, and restore the Empire of Tamriel. Then once more, peace and justice will rule the provinces, rather than blood and fire.
That was long.
That was a big, big book.
No, that was good.
I like it a lot. But only him, it being Embrick there, the Daggerfall Covenant. Like, all the other ones had one book. He literally has 3 in-game. Each one of these is different in-game. But they're all the same story, so we had to put them all together.
A bunch of those words were more difficult than the one that I read last week. So if I mess that up, especially to everyone listening now, I apologize.
I did better than I could have done. So yeah, awesome. All right, we're going to move on to our Community Spotlight. This week for Community Spotlight, I've decided to highlight one of my favorite sites in the Elder Scrolls community, the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. I actually cannot believe I haven't done it already, but they are an amazing fan-run website for all things Elder Scrolls. They have great articles on lore and different aspects of all the different games. I do personally adore their lore sections. In fact, actually, the thing I read on Veloth was from unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. Yeah. Anytime I search for something like on their site and I see that familiar lore : tag, I'm all over that, because they do show mechanics as well as the lore behind it. They have them in separate articles. They started all the way back in 95, and to date have over 26,000 articles all about the Elder Scrolls universe. It is an absolutely amazing site, and this is my go-to site for anything lore related. I really won't go anywhere else. Except maybe the Imperial Library, because they only show the books exactly as they were written, no other commentary. So I do want to say thank you so much to the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages for being an amazing, and in my opinion, though I'm pretty sure others would agree with me, an invaluable part to the Elder Scrolls community. I honestly don't know where our community would be without you guys. Thank you so much. All right. We're going to move on to our other section called the Guild Spotlight. Time for a guild update. As always, if anyone is interested in joining our friends and family guild for Tales of Tamriel, you can whisper or send an in-game mail to Aggelos, @TierEater, at Crabby654. And we will definitely get you an invite. Anyone who's currently in the guild can also invite. I do want to say we have a good number of people in here, more than I thought. We actually got over 50, which was surprising. And now we have a guild store as well, so I need to start loading that up so I can steal money from people. But yes, it is really impressive the amount of people who want to hang out with us and do some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, this week, starting Monday, so starting tomorrow and going till next Monday, there is going to be a contest between Ag and myself. Now, the contest is, in 1 week's time, who can get the most Nirnroot? Now, obviously, if you have a favorite host, either myself or Aggelos, you can send your Nirnroot to me at Teareater, TearEater, or you can send it to that guy over there if you possibly want him to win. I don't know why you would want that, but that's only for this week from Monday to Monday. So choose who you want to win, either myself or Aggelos.
It's a running joke within our guild, so she wanted to see how many people we could get to get Nirnroot. So, as an addendum, everyone who needs to get invited to the guild has to whisper me, and you need to send me a Nirnroot to get a guild invite. Simple. All right. Other than that little fun con, we'll let you know who won on next week's podcast. Just fun little bit. We're announcing our first guild event that we want to do as a guild next week, Saturday, I have to look here, the 26th of April at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It is PvP with Thais and Aggelos on Hope's Fire. Because I'm really getting sick and tired of being called Prince Charles, and it's a little running joke we have with our with my European friends in the guild. Because last time I looked, my rank towards Emperor was like 957th in.
Oh, there you go.
In line for the throne. So I made a joke to them one morning that, oh yeah, I'm like 956 in line to the throne. I'm kind of like an unwanted cousin, half removed half a billion times, and all the Europeans that we have in the guild. So, so you're Prince Charles then? So,
I can't wait to PvP. I haven't really done any yet, so
well,
I'm excited to do
hopefully
that.
we have a good showing. So we are on Ebonheart Pact on the Hope's Fire campaign. So even if you're not, on that campaign, you can guest. It'd be nice to try to get a couple guildies together, and we'll go out and have some PvP fun on Saturday, April 26th, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, that was our first guild event. We hope to see everyone out there, and we'll let you know how it went next week.
Send your Nirnroot to @Teareater.
And that is spelled Aggelos. Thank you. All right, moving on to the emails for the show. We had so much this week. It was amazing. We had a couple who emailed us directly on the site. One was from a gentleman, I'm assuming a gentleman named Parker. Hi guys, I love your guys' work and the excitement you all have for what you're doing. No, I love Skyrim, but I haven't played the other Elder Scrolls games, and I know nothing about lore or history or anything like that about Tamriel. Could you guys help me? Also, are you guys going to be doing a podcast for Elder Scrolls 6 when it comes out? Thanks again. Never stop doing what you're doing. Answering the second question first, I know I definitely will be, because depending on how long the podcast goes, hopefully for a very, very, very long time, it is an Elder Scrolls, like I have to tag it's Elder Scrolls Online show because that's the one that we're always in, but I'm a huge fan of Tamriel as a whole, so I know when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, we will be playing that, and we'll be doing tales just like what we did prior to the launch of ESO with Skyrim and stuff like that.
I mean, I imagine at some point news will dry up a bit, for ESO, to the point where our shows are, we're going over 3 hours right now. I'm pretty sure there'll be a point where the shows are about an hour long and we'll have not a whole lot to talk about. So I'm sure this will get in there somehow.
All right, yeah. Our shows are definitely, they go based on what we have to talk about. So eventually we will get that stuff in there. And that's why I also added in that lore section, which I will try to do, because I do love talking lore, and there is some really neat stuff even I found by just playing the game and looking something up and going, wow, that's more in depth than I really thought it was. So I will be trying to throw little lore nuggets out there, especially during the Tales section and stuff like that. So, Ace, why don't you read the next one? Okay, I'll read the next one. You can read that one. Second one is from Tim. Hey guys, love your podcast. Have been listening to it at work. I was wondering if I could do if you could do a segment on weapons and weapon charging, including using world abilities. I also wanted to mention I have a hard time hearing episode 11 because of music bed. It was drowning out the voices. Keep up the great work. Yeah.
I thought you learned from me when I told you the music was too loud.
Well, the music bed was also caused from 11 because everyone other than me was quiet.
Yeah.
The same music was there at the same volume levels in 12 when we did do a live streaming show, and it was immaculate.
Well, the audio test before the show sounded fine, right?
Yes, it did.
All right, so hopefully, I didn't screw up this episode this time. Silence.
I know. Sorry, she was asking me a question here. Just ask it on...
Do a segment on weapons and weapon charging.
I'll do some research on this for you, Tim, and we'll see.
I can say that. I was charging one of my weapons. I have level 43 staff. I was charging with minor soul gems. I used 30, and it went up a quarter of the bar. But it's possible, if that helps at all.
Right. I really have to do some research on it. The soul gems are very much a usable quantity of items that you really need to have on you a lot, because enchants in this game do work different than other games. They are finite, and you do need soul gems. But to be honest, based on how Resurrection works, I honestly think by the time you hit endgame, I know it's kind of hard to do this, you should probably have at least a full stack. That's a full 100 of the highest level soul gems that you can use in your bag at any given time. That's one of those things, if you've raided in other games, that's your essentially your flask, your food. You need soul gems. Make sure you always have them. I'll see what I can figure out, though, and we'll go from there. You want to grab this next one?
This next email is from someone named Michael. Hi, Aggelos and Thais. Firstly, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Michael, and my character's name is Gypsy on the Aldmari Dominion. Yep, I am one of those dirty Bosmer Wood Elves you guys don't like much. My MMO experience is limited to only 2 games, WoW and SWTOR. I have enjoyed each one of the aforementioned games a lot, but I don't have a vast knowledge of MMOs. That being said, I am very eager to experience ESO to its fullest. I purchased the Imperial edition of the game at launch and have been playing as often as I can. Before I ever invest money in a game, I like to research it first. I'll read the forums, blogs, websites, fan sites, and listen to podcasts to get a feel for the game's community to form an opinion. Your podcast is the main thing that influenced me to want to play ESO. I have been listening to the podcast since your 2nd episode, The Imperials Are Coming, and have every intention to continue. Why, you might ask? Well, that's a fantastic question, and I am glad you asked. 2 things convinced me to play ESO and be an avid listener to your podcast. 1, chemistry, plain and simple. The chemistry that you and your wife have here are awesome, all in caps with an exclamation point. 2, the 2 of yours' passion for the Elder Scroll game, its lore and rich history sold me as well. The 2 of you radiate such positive energy when you discuss ESO and the Elder Scroll legacy that it is hard not to feel that positive energy as well. I've listened to many different podcasts, and I still listen to others as well as yours because, much like Aggelos, I have a lot of time to listen to things and work too. Please take this feedback for what it's worth. Please don't change a thing because of people criticizing the cast. Believe me, there are always going to be haters out there, but there are many others, in my opinion, which love it the way the podcast is. I, myself, am one of those mentioned listeners. I listen because it is like I am listening to my friends talk while questing in Mumble. I enjoy every moment of the cast and actually look forward to hearing what has happened next in your lives. Silly, I know, but I am a silly guy. To make any good book or movie, you have to establish a bond between yourself and the characters in it. If you don't have something in common with the characters, you probably won't finish the book, in my opinion. I look at the podcast as an ever-expanding book, much like the title of the podcast suggests, with each week being a new chapter to it. Ever see The Never-Ending Story? I see the podcast to be kind of like that movie. Don't laugh. I know I sound dumb for saying it, which you don't, but we are being honest here, so I thought I would share my personal insight. Anyway, I know I am going on and on and on without a real point, so I will end it with this. I really enjoy the podcast, and I really genuinely appreciate the two of you. I am making a Dark Elf Sorcerer or a Dragon Knight, still haven't decided, for the sole purpose to maybe play with you guys sometime. Her name will be, I won't say it so no one steals it, or so I hope that the name hasn't been taken by the time I create her. Anyway, hope to see you in game sometime. Semper Fi, Michael, aka Gypsy, aka soon to be another character.
That's an awesome email. And actually, you know what?
Is it Michael or Mikhail?
It's probably... Well, his
I
name...
know Aggelos wrote these show notes and he spelled like every word wrong.
I
can't tell.
He is a horrible speller. He could probably not spell the correctly if it wasn't for me in spell check. Well, I know he said his name is Michael.
I'm going to stop people right here because first off, I'm going to say this. Ouch for the spelling. But I copy these word for word from the letters. So this is not me. This is literally copy-paste from the email.
Yeah,
so
I think you're right because this email has no incorrect spellings in it.
Ouch.
Oh, what a burn!
Join us next week when I'm the only one on the podcast.
But I think it would be Mikhail as his tag, but his name is Michael? I don't know.
Like I said, yeah, if you obviously listen, just log in and send one of us a message, dude. We'll get you in the guild.
Absolutely. But yeah, you know, it's actually not the first person who's actually said that the way our podcast sounds, it's like just listening and talking to old friends. Cash and Mog Nation said that about us, and that's one of his favorite parts about our podcast is it almost feels like we're just sitting here chatting away, and it's a good time. It really is.
Can we get to the one thing that actually mentions me? Come on.
Okay.
This one thing in here that mentions me, right?
I don't... Oh, I do see it. All right. All right. Gonna delete that off the show.
Yeah, just get rid of that one.
We don't need that one. It was important. All right. Moving on to the next ones. These are from iTunes. We had some 5-star reviews. And I do want to say I'm really sorry to our European friends. I hate iTunes, and it separates out the reviews based on country. I forgot. I shouldn't say I didn't know, because I did know, but it just didn't stick in my head. So there were actually 2 reviews out there from our UK people that I did not actually know about. I am sorry. So I have added them here. Great listen. This is from Elam69. Great podcast that is enjoyable listen. Your balanced views and insightful information really add to my experience of the game and help me get through the long, frustrating wait for early access. See, that's how long this
must
ago
have been
was.
an old one.
It was. It was like the beginning of April, and I'm really sad. Now that the game is live, I look forward to hearing all about your in-game experiences as my favorite section of the show. And if I did have any negatives, it would be that I'd love to hear more about your actual gameplay experiences with the Elder Scrolls Online. Keep up the great work, guys. All right, next up.
All right, I'm going to read the one that Crabby really wants to hear. Unless Crabby wants to read it. Do you want to read it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Zomrox, Thumbs up, 5 stars. A great listen. I stumbled upon the Tales of Tamriel after seeing it featured on the ESO Community Spotlight. I've since gone back and listened to all the episodes. Sorry. And my days at work have gone much quicker as a result. Hosted by a married couple and often joined by the ever-entertaining Crabby,
Yeah.
the trio really enjoy what they're talking about and delivered at a pace that really engages the listener. Great
Someone
discussions,
likes me.
great news, and amazing depth, especially to the lore and reading sections of the show. Overall, it's become one of my must-listen-to ESO podcasts, and I look forward to hearing further Tales of Tamriel now that the game has launched.
Awesome. And
Someone likes me. Yay.
he is in the guild. He's actually
Yeah,
one
no,
of
I know.
he's one of our Euro friends who calls me Prince Charles. All right, next up from Rate Nerd. I like the name. I just want to say I really enjoy the podcast. The cast is awesome. Again, smiley face. I enjoy the readings that Thais does. She is passionate about ESO and its lore. It is infectious in a good way. In fact, this is the reason I started to read the books on the shelves instead of just clicking through. I didn't forget about you, Aggelos. I really enjoy your stories and your passion as well for the game. You and Thais are the reason I started playing the game. Anyway, love the cast. Keep up the great works, guys. Addendum, he loves Crabby too.
Uh-huh.
Poor Crabby.
Who's Crabby? Who is this guy?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Next up, from Pieman0100. I think he's been on the show before, or wrote us before, and he rated us again. That's really nice. Hey guys, I totally love all you do, and this show is great. And Aggelos, I totally got your poached calm egg joke from episode 8, having recently played Morrowind. Thank you. You were probably the only person I'm glad it wasn't wasted on. It just wasn't wasted. That's awesome. Yeah, go ahead and read this email from Facebook.
Okay. From Ilium. Hey guys, Ilium here from the UK. Just wanted to say that I really enjoy the show, and it helps get me through the long work days. I did actually give you a 5-star iTunes review a week or so back, but I think it's gone onto the UK iTunes store, so you may not see it. Just a heads up, as there is at least one other review on there that you may have missed. But anyway, love the show, and your balanced and insightful views are always interesting. Excellent chemistry between the hosts for obvious reasons.
I don't see the reasons. I don't get it.
Maybe this is slang for him. Gutted that I can't join your guild and play with you guys, but it just doesn't make sense for me to play on the North American server with the time differences. If you ever decide to expand onto the European server, I'm sure you would have lots more fans eager to play along with you. I play a sorcerer the same as Thais, and after listening to your latest show, I was surprised to hear her mention that she felt quite squishy without you there, and also didn't like the look of any skills from the Mages Guild skill line. The first one, Mage Light, when morphed to Inner Light, gives a constant 20% boost to critical hit chance, and is a staple of my sorcerer build. Combining this with Impulse from the Destro staff and with Critical Surge that heals every time you crit makes you pretty unbeatable when solo, even with groups of 10 mobs at once. Hope this helps and keep up the great work, guys. Already looking forward to the next episode. Thanks, Ilium.
That's exactly what I do, and it's awesome.
That's why I wanted to feature this one. He actually did. Ilium69 was him, and he mentioned the two podcast reviews. That's why I had to say I'm sorry.
Wow, I really would not have figured that out on my own. Thank you for that.
Well, I really wanted to include it because of the mage. Okay, never mind. All right, moving up. Rocksmith, Cody. I think he's in the guild too, actually. Hey guys, awesome podcast. I have had trouble hearing the crab man is talking or when the girl is talking. That's you.
The girl.
The girl.
Haha, you're the girl.
You are the girl.
Wow, I am just demoted to
I'm talking
the
to you,
girl.
Ag. I'm not talking to her.
Yeah, that was about me. He's talking about me, especially when music starts playing. That's my only complaint. Love the content, love the long episodes. Keep it up, and hopefully when the servers are back up, I can find you guys in game. And he did. And of course, I spoke to him earlier, and our audio has increased after episode 11. All right, so that is the end of our... Oh, no, it's not the end. Thank you for pointing that out to me. We did have some questions in the guild. I did not write these on the show notes, and I'm glad Thais pointed them out to me. She wrote them down. We had some questions from inside the Tales of Tamriel Guild in game. Hi, babe. I'm assuming that's you talking and not. No, I'm going to assume it's Clean.
No,
At Clean35 says, "Hey, babe." Well, hi, Clean. How are you?
Wow, that's okay.
How about I got you, babe? Don't worry about it, Clean. Next podcast, can you guys go answer the questions of PvP ranks? Like, why does one person who is veteran or legendary rank kick 7 people's expletive? Do ranks give you extra power, or... Oh my goodness, this is some really bad chicken scratch.
I write really, really bad.
Oh my goodness, it's like hieroglyphics over here. Oh my goodness.
Is he talking about veteran ranks?
Yeah,
Let me see.
Part way. Okay, here you go.
Can someone decipher this?
Yeah, I need an ancient scholar here.
It says, do ranks give you extra power, or are they just like veteran ranks in PvE? See, that's plain as day.
Oh,
that's
so
just... Gosh,
Okay.
guys.
PvP ranks?
There-
I have no idea.
There are two different things here. PvP ranks and veteran ranks are two separate. The PvP ranks you literally only get from as you're taking keeps and earning the alliance points. They have a certain cap, and once you hit that cap, you advance to the next rank. Arguably, they don't do anything other than give you more alliance points. From what I hear, I don't think they increase your stats. I mean, I've increased 1 level, not a lot, and it doesn't give you anything else other than the fact of saying, yes, I've PvP'd a lot. On the other hand, veteran ranks do indeed give you the ability to put on better gear, and it does give you a minuscule stat improvement when you level. And here's the thing, the people who are that high in PvP ranked are probably already level 50, and you do gain veteran rank experience while PvPing in Cyrodiil. As such, veteran level 50s are already way more powerful than the people who are auto-leveled to 50. So that's probably a lot of the things that you're seeing right there is the fact that if you are auto-leveled to 50, you're kind of have base stats. You're not really powerful. It's kind of like being an under-geared level 50. Whereas these guys are wearing all level 50 gear. They're getting the max stats they can, plus some veteran gear. So in reality, it's kind of like a 50 taking on a pack of 30 mobs. Go into PvE, and you can AoE down 10 level 30 mobs in a few seconds. That's the difference. That's what you're seeing here. And since the game is so new, and there are a couple people who are up there in the high veteran ranks, there are, but the vast majority of the game, like if you've been playing like Thais and I, we hit 31 today, and we've had a lot of playtime. This isn't casual playtime. It's almost 7 full days of playtime in, so that's 24 hours. That's a lot of hours in so far, and we're only 30 because we've been taking our time, and I think a lot of the player base is doing that. So when you go in there and you're auto-leveled, you're generally weaker than fully leveled people. So that's probably why you're getting your bum kicked. So hopefully that helped, babe. I'll see you in the game. All right. It's time for us to give our final thoughts and let people know where they can follow us. Thais, tell us your final thoughts for the episode.
My final thoughts are a little odd because now that Ag is calling Clean babe, it's just a little weird. But it was a great show. I'm just happy we went over so much, and we got a lot of feedback from the community, and just lots of emails and everything that we went over, and I'm really excited about the contest. Remember, guys, who do you want to win? Aggelos or Thais? Send us your Nern route. You can send it to me at Tier Eater or to my unworthy opponent at Aggelos. Great show.
That unworthy opponent is her husband, who feels kind of sad right now. Crabby,
I love you.
Give us your final thoughts.
I feel like every time I say this is the longest show ever, the show gets longer because this is officially the longest show ever, going in at almost 3.5 hours. No, it was good. A lot of stuff covered. Great. Can I go?
Absolutely. All right. I want to thank.
Fun.
I do want to thank my co-host for joining me this evening. I thought it was a great show. Definitely had a lot to go over, and I had fun doing it. I love doing this every single week. Absolutely every single week.
Setting up the stream is really fun for me. I love doing it.
Yeah, it is amazing, and I love the support that we get from the community. And what do we say, babe? That we feel like mini celebrities to tens of people.
Are you talking Thais or Clean?
Oh, Clean, yeah.
I wasn't sure there.
Oh, no. It is great. Like, the community has rallied behind us so much. It is amazing. We love hanging out with you guys. Love hopping into Guild, seeing people, reading your emails. It is a blast, and we adore it. So, thank everyone. Thank you all for listening to the podcast. If you wish to help support the podcast, feel free to donate via the PayPal link on our website. If you wish to contact us with questions, comments, criticisms, our website for the show is talesoftamriel.com, or you can email the show at podcast@talesoftamriel.com. You can follow the show on Twitter at Tales of Tamriel, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tales of Tamriel podcast. Also, feel free to rate and subscribe to us via iTunes. That really helps us, guys. We love it. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Tales of Tamriel. Have a good evening, everyone.